27 मई 1964 पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू का निधन हो गया। देश गहरे विषाद में डूब गया। सभी के मन में एक ही सवाल था, कौन बनेंगे नए प्रधानमंत्री, कौन करेंगे इस महान सभ्यता का नेतृत्व।
आफ्टर नेहरू नेहरू के बाद कौन होगा, तो ये उनको इस बात का एहसास था। जब मुझसे पूछा गया कि इस कमी को दूर कैसे करेंगे, तो उन्होंने कहा कि पंडित जी ने अपने व्यक्तित्व की वजह से, टावरिंग पर्सनैलिटी की वजह से, उन्होंने इस पद को शक्ति प्रदान की, और मैं प्रयास करूंगा इस पद से शक्ति प्राप्त करने की, जिससे कि मैं देश की सेवा कर सकूं।
2 अक्टूबर 1904 के दिन काशी के पास मुगल सराय में जन्मे लाल बहादुर का पूरा व्यक्तित्व ही गांधीवाद का जीता जागता स्वरूप था।
उनकी सादगी, पहली बात तो धोती पहनते थे। ये आम आदमी को उससे बड़ा भरोसा हो जाता था कि हमारे जैसे है।
पिता की छत्र छाया बचपन में ही छिन गई थी। विधवा मां के साथ ननिहाल चले गए, वहीं पर परवरिश हुई। 1921 में जब स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन में कूद पड़े तो निष्ठा और दृढ़ता के प्रमाण मिलते चले गए। 17 वर्ष की आयु से स्वाधीनता तक लगभग 9 साल जेल में काटे। रहीमन हीरा कब कहे लाख टका मेरो मोल। पार्टी कार्य में उनकी निष्ठा से प्रभावित होकर नेहरू ने लाल बहादुर शास्त्री को रेल मंत्री नियुक्त किया, परंतु 1953 में घटी एक रेल दुर्घटना की नैतिक जिम्मेदारी लेते हुए शास्त्री जी ने मंत्रालय से इस्तीफा दे दिया।
उन्होंने वो इस्तीफा देकर राजनीति में नए मूल्यों की स्थापना की।
नेहरू जी के मंत्रिमंडल में कई विशिष्ट पदों पर अपनी छाप छोड़ते हुए वे गृह मंत्री नियुक्त हुए। 9 जून 1964 पंडित नेहरू के निधन के बाद स्वयं पंडित नेहरू के चहेते लाल बहादुर शास्त्री ने भारत के दूसरे प्रधानमंत्री का पदभार संभाला। कुल 4 शब्दों में उस मृदुभाषी व्यक्ति ने देश को एक नारा दिया, जय जवान जय किसान।
उन्होंने उस समय इस बात का एहसास कर लिया था, देश के अंदर हमें अपने जो भंडार है अनाज के, उन्हें पूरा भर देना है, और एक जो भारत के गौरव और गरिमा को देश विश्व में खड़ा कर देना है, वो अगर संभव है तो जवानों और किसानों की जय जयकार करने से ही है।
लाल बहादुर शास्त्री, Prime Minister of India, speaking on Independence Day in 1965.
हम हथियारों का जवाब हथियारों से दें।
5 सितंबर 1965 पाकिस्तान ने भारत के खिलाफ खुली जंग का ऐलान कर दिया। जवाब में भारतीय सेना पंजाब से सीमा पार कर गई। जब तक संयुक्त राष्ट्र की पहल पर युद्ध विराम हुआ, तब तक भारत की सेनाएं पाकिस्तानी सेना पर हावी हो चुकी थी।
वो किसी के दबाव में आने वाले व्यक्ति नहीं थे। जब ऐसी घटना होती है तो बहुत ज्यादा अंतर्राष्ट्रीय दबाव होते हैं। अगर आप दब गए तो झुक जाएंगे, वो नहीं दबे। लेकिन फिर शायद दोनों देशों की भलाई सोचकर वो युद्ध विराम पर राजी हो गए।
10 जनवरी 1966 ताशकंद। जिन आदर्शों के नैतिक बल का मजा वो पाकिस्तान को चखा चुके थे, आज उन्हीं आदर्शों की उदारता से उन्होंने समझौते के कागजात पर दस्तखत कर दिए। लेकिन अभी समझौते के दस्तावेज पर स्याही सूखी भी न थी कि उसी रात शास्त्री जी को दिल का दौरा पड़ा और उनकी मृत्यु हो गई। गांधी जी ने कहा था कि शत्रु का दिल जीतना ही वास्तविक जीत है। सुदूर ताशकंद में जब स्वर्गीय लाल बहादुर शास्त्री को कोसिजन के साथ साथ खुद जनरल अयूब खान ने कंधा दिया, तो लगा जैसे शास्त्री जी बापू के फलसफे को चरितार्थ कर दुनिया से रुखसत हो गए थे। लाल बहादुर शास्त्री केवल 18 महीनों तक भारत के प्रधानमंत्री रहे, लेकिन अपने प्रधानमंत्रित्व के छोटे से कार्यकाल में शास्त्री जी ने भारत के हर नागरिक के कानों में आत्मसम्मान और आत्मबल का मंत्र फूंक दिया था। अपने व्यक्तित्व से
पेट अनमुक्त हो रहा है। श्रीमती
Everyone, we are facing some network issue. Please wait for a while.
श्रीमती ललिता शास्त्री। Srimati Lalita Shastri debate competition was first organized in 2011, thereby providing the youth of our country a legitimate national platform to voice their opinions and spark intelligent conversation about the matters that matter. This debate competition was commenced to annually commemorate the memory of late Srimati Lalita Shastri ji, wife of former Prime Minister and a principal guiding force, late Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. A bow doesn't fire without an arrow, as Srimati Lalita Shastri ji was the backbone who stood firm with Shastri ji in the difficult and strenuous situations faced by him with calm and patience. Her inspirational memoirs and the melodious prayers are a jewel to behold, and we cherish those in our memories and feel grateful to be a part of her legacy. She was a beacon of courage and tolerance as she raised two sons all by herself for 9 years when Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji was imprisoned. She founded the Shastri Seva Niketan and narrated the story of her life in Lalita Ke Aasu, which was written by Krant M.L. Verma in the year 1978.
Moving forward, We are glad to have Dr. Praveen Gupta, Director, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Amritsar. Professor Gupta carries more than 33 years of academic, administrative, and industry experience. Now, we cordially invite our Honorable Director, Dr. Praveen Gupta, to address the audience. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, respected Chairman Board of Governors, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Shri Anil Shastri ji, the two illustrious judges of today's event, Mr. Manu Kohli and Dr. Mohit Lohani, Dr. Sheila Bhargav, the faculty guide to Plithos and the organizing team, all the participants from different institutions across India, dear students and faculty. It is indeed a proud day for us as we have organized Srimati Lalita Shastri debate competition at Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management. I extend a warm welcome to each one of you. It is indeed our pleasure that Sri Anil Shastri ji himself is present today, and I extend once again a warm welcome to sir. Debate, sir. Debate, I always hold in high esteem among students and in the society. Unfortunately, sometimes we get carried away because we see TV debates. If you go by dictionary meaning of word debate, there are two coins, two sides of the coin. One is tark and vitark, and second is bahas. So I tell my students always, I always encourage, you can say, where debate carries the purpose of expressing, of sharing, connecting, presenting a viewpoint, to understand, to empathize, and to learn and develop. I think that is the role of debate, and that is the role of debate in educational institution as well as in the society. And I think this is the objective with which we have instituted Shrimati Lalita Shastri National Debate Competition in Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management. As the organizing team has mentioned, the contribution of Shrimati Lalita Shastri ji has been immense to the society and to the nation. And it is our small effort to remember the contribution of Shrimati Lalita Shastri ji and Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji to the society. I'm extremely glad to know that there has been a very healthy number of entries from very prestigious institutions across the nation. There were, as I'm told, there were total 21 teams who have expressed their willingness to participate. And out of these 21, from multiple rounds of selection processes, we have finally shortlisted total 11 teams, 9 external teams, and 2 teams from LBSM will be participating. I leave the topic to be introduced by the organizing team, and it is a very vibrant and very, you can say, pertinent topic which they have chosen. And I am sure the efforts put in by the team Plithos and the faculty coordinator will reflect in today's quality of debate. So with these words, I welcome once again Chairman Shri Anil Shastri ji, all the participants and the judges. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, moving forward, to grace us with his presence, today we have with us a member of the Shastri family itself. Please welcome our chief guest, Shri Anil Shastri ji, son of late Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. Shri Anil Shastri ji has graduated in economics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi, and did advanced management program from Astridge Management College, UK. He has done general management program from Administrative Staff College, Hyderabad, and business management program from Tata Management Training Center, Pune. He is the chairman, Board of Governors, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management and Technology, Bareilly, and also the chairman, Board of Governors, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Delhi. From being an active member of Indian National Congress to actively sharing wisdom on Twitter, sir, it's indeed a pleasure to have you here among us today. I would now request you to please share your valuable thoughts with the audience. Please, sir.
Thank you. Director of Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Dr. Praveen Gupta, honorable judges, and all participants, some of whom I can see on my monitor, and all those who are attending this debate. At the outset, I express my deep pleasure for being present here and see the proceedings of the debate, which is named after my mother, Srimati Lalita Shastri. I must say that this kind of a debate does give an opportunity to the participants to discuss on a particular topic, on a particular issue. And by doing so, they disseminate information that they have, that they possess, not only to the other participants, but to all those who get an opportunity to see this program. Debate is basically a deep-rooted phenomenon in any democracy. Great democracies, whether in the United States of India, United Kingdom, and India, which is the largest democracy in the world, have given strength to people and to the democratic traditions. And therefore, I have always personally encouraged any kind of debate on any particular issue. I therefore would like to pay my compliments to LB Siam for organizing the Lalita Shastri debate on a regular basis since 2011. And I'm also happy that a lot of teams from various institutions participate in this debate. Lalita Shastri ji was always believed to be a great source of strength for my father Lal Bahadur Shastri, which Shastri ji always acknowledged publicly as well. In some of his speeches, he always said that his wife, Lalita ji, never bothered him about various household issues and problems, particularly when he was in jail. Shastri ji spent 9 years during the freedom struggle in jail under the British regime. And whenever he would write a letter to his wife Lalita ji, as to know what was happening at home if there were problems, Lalita ji always wrote back to him saying that don't worry about household issues, to please fight for the freedom of India under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. I'll take care of all household problems, household issues. And that is how Shastri ji got the strength and courage to fight for India's freedom. And it was because of her support that he rose to the highest office of India's Prime Minister, which you always, as I said, acknowledged. I would like to once again compliment LB Siam for having organized this debate today online, of course, and I'm sure the The deliberations during the course of this debate are going to be beneficial to all those who are participating in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your kind words with us. Moving forward, I would now like to take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed judges, Mr. Manu Kohli and Mr. Mohit Lohani. Mr. Manu Kohli is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta with a career spanning over 20 years in consulting, investment banking, finance, and business development across various industries. His last role was Head of Business Development for Bharat Petroleum's petrochemical business covering Asia, Europe, and Middle East. He is currently very excited with his new opportunity as an entrepreneur, building a startup in the area of electric mobility as one of the three co-promoters. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out time from your busy schedule. Our second judge for the day is Mr. Mohit Lohani. He is an associate professor at Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Delhi. He is an IIM Lucknow alumnus with a PhD from Devi Ahilya University and has 14 years of corporate experience in marketing, retail, IT, and e-commerce. He has served in the senior management of fashion and home brands like Aditya Birla Group, Grasim, Siaram, etc.
I take this opportunity on behalf of Plithos, the Literary and Debating Club of Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, to acknowledge the constant support provided to us by the management grid and the media and communication cell. Dubito ergo cogito, cogito ergo sum, which translates to I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. This is not just a stirring quote, but the motto we live by. We at Plithos are a clan of people who have immense love for the art of public speaking. We aim to foster one's love for language, enhance literary creativity, and provide a venue for self-expression beyond the curriculum. We organize a plethora of events ranging from poetry competitions to group discussions, creative writing, open mic, and our flagship event, Srimati Lalita Shastri Debate Competition. LSDC provides a platform for exchange of ideas that help develop a profound understanding of critical issues concerning the society and the global community.
Commencing the debate, the topic of the day is the House believes that the brain drain phenomenon is a gain for Indians but a loss for a developing nation like India. I repeat, the topic of the day is the House believes that the brain drain phenomenon is a gain for Indians but a loss for a developing nation like India. Before we begin with the competition, we would like to apprise everyone present here with the rules. Each team will be invited by the moderators to speak on the topic. Each team will be allotted 4 minutes to speak. There will be a short single bell at 2-minute mark to indicate that the first team member's time is up. Further, there will be another bell at 3-minute 30-second mark to indicate the last 30 seconds left for the second member to conclude. Immediately followed will be the rebuttal round, wherein the judges and other teams will be given an opportunity to ask any question that they deem fit. In case of any technical issues faced by a participant, his or her teammate may take over. The participant can then only be part of the rebuttal round once the floor is opened. The teams will be judged on the following criteria: the content, the delivery of the content, the adherence to the time limit, body language and handling of rebuttals, and the quality of rebuttals asked. I may now request Khushi and Vaibhav to take you through the rules of rebuttal.
Thank you, Chaya. Rules of rebuttal round. After the teams have concluded speaking on their respective motions, the rebuttals round will begin. The judges and the participants will be given an opportunity to ask any question they deem fit. In the rebuttals round, firstly, the judges, at their discretion, may or may not ask the teams any questions. Next, in the rebuttals, we will entertain questions from the judges and other participating teams. A maximum of 5 rebuttals will be entertained after each team's speech, the order for which will be decided on first come first served basis. For example, if the judges ask a team 2 questions, then the participating teams can ask 3 questions. A rebuttal question should not exceed 30 seconds and a rebuttal answer not more than 1 minute. An individual can ask at most 2 questions during the whole event.
The sequence of the rebuttals will be decided by the order of raised hand in MS Teams, that is on the first come first serve basis. Each team will be required to raise their hands using the aforementioned feature in MS Teams as and when the floor is opened for rebuttals. For example, if a team wants to ask a question, they will have to raise their hands immediately after the floor is opened. Please note that the hands raised for rebuttals before the announcement will not be considered. Before beginning your rebuttal question, please mention your name and the name of the team which you belong to. Counter questions are not allowed. Also, to avoid the same, one team cannot ask more than one rebuttal from each team. We hope all the rules are clear to everyone concerned, and good luck, everyone.
Now, commencing the debate, we would now like to invite our first team for the day. Onwards from IIM Bangalore, represented by Sakshi Agarwal and Kranti S. Chaitanya, who would be speaking for the motion. I repeat, onwards from IIM Bangalore, represented by Sakshi Agarwal and Kranti Chaitanya S., who would be speaking for the motion. Please turn on your cameras and start the debate.
Also, if any participant is unable to mute himself or herself, kindly raise your hand so that we can provide you with the presenter rights.
Team IIM Bangalore is facing some technical issues. Meanwhile, we'd like to call upon the next team, Team Manku Debaters from Daulat Ram College, University of Delhi, represented by Nitiksha Tyagi and Khyati Parekh, who will be speaking for the motion. I request Team Manku Debaters to kindly be on cameras, please.
I hope I'm both audible and visible.
Yes, Nitiksha, you are audible and visible as well.
Khyati, I'll just contact Khyati.
I repeat, Team Manku Debaters from Daulat Ram College, represented by Nitiksha Tyagi and Khyati Parekh, will be speaking against the motion.
Hi, am I not audible?
Khyati, yes, you are audible now.
Yeah, thank you.
Your voice is very feeble, but you are audible. Your voice is very feeble.
Am I visible?
You are visible, your voice is very feeble. Could you just increase the volume? Could you just repeat yourself, please?
Am I audible now?
It's better, but it's still feeble.
Kathy, maybe try getting rid of your headphones or something.
Is there something wrong with the connectivity? We can't, we're not able to get going.
I think, sir, there's an issue at the participants' end.
Actually, Microsoft Teams is a new platform for us. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience.
I think one member is easily understood. Nitiksha, we can hear very well.
Okay, sir.
You may please go ahead with the debate.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
So is that okay? So does Kathy not participate? Yeah. Okay, Kathy's back. Dipali ma'am, am I supposed to speak for like the 4 minutes? Because initially we were about to speak for 2 minutes each.
I think I'm intervening, but that will be better because everybody is waiting.
Right.
So at least one member where voice is very clear, that member can participate for 4 minutes.
All right.
I don't.
That wouldn't like in any way discredit the stance of our team, right? Because it's both of our preparation. It's just me who's representing.
Okay, it's
All right.
fine. You can please start the debate.
I'll just give you a countdown. I'll just set myself a timer. All right. I'll begin in 3, 2, and 1. Panel, I'll be speaking against the motion, which is to say that the burden we take as members of opposition is to prove to you that there is a collective gain in brain drain and not just individual gain, which means that developing countries are not always at a loss when brain drain happens. And here's how we mechanize this particular argument to you. If proposition goes ahead and says that it is only individual gain in terms of only people who move outside of the country who benefit because they have quality of life, better accessibilities to amenities, etc., etc., we tell you that it's better in the developing countries for brain drain to become a prominent issue as well. Why? Because first of all, there's government incentivization to do better in the field of human capital formation. We believe that as a developing country, we're always fraught with a political turmoils, such as the one happening between the communal tensions in India being manifested. So, right? Why is that a problem? Because we haven't been able to let go of these identity politics, these concerns that are only secondary to our primary concerns such as economy, human capital formation, so on and so forth. So we think that the relocation of focus of the government to these concerns, because now they see the Western world capitalizing on our oversight, will happen more promptly, which manifests in certain schemes coming about, such as the Ramanujan Fellowship scheme that the government introduced, or Vaishvik Bharatiya Vaigyanik Summit that was introduced by the government to incentivize people, the human capital, to be retained in country so that they do not go ahead and pursue their education and professions outside of the country. We believe that does not just incentivize these people to stay back, but also creates a culture in the country where research and development is being given priority, where identity politics takes a backseat because people realize the value of retaining human capital and understand how the globalized world works in terms of countries who do not focus on the right things losing out, right? How does this manifest? This essentially manifests in terms of better financial research support being now given to people in India who are research enthusiasts, because people generally go outside of the country because there are certain pull factors in the Western world, such as research opportunities being better there being more investment in research by the government in the Western countries, there being better quality of life. But the government of India is also now incentivized to not just spend that 0.7% of the GDP in research that they used to spend as a nominal amount, but increase it in order to retain people. We think then that the country benefits because it's trying to evolve itself according to the needs of the specialization, the people who specialize in certain realms on research, but also because the individuals benefit because they can stay in their country where there is more prestige because they are citizens also and not just vying for citizenship across or outside the country, right? But secondly, on the idea of how trend is Now the trend is reverse migration. Look at the status quo. I mean, the people who go ahead and study abroad, they choose to come back to India. It's not like they retain themselves there. And that's primarily because of what status quo looks like for the developing countries. There are a lot of people who go out of the country and they put themselves in the Western world and they don't come back. As a result of which there is a void that's been created in India within the professional realm where we don't have as many functionaries in certain realms, right? Like consider the medical situation. You don't have enough specialized doctors because most of them move outside as long as they have the capital to, or when they can seek scholarships because of their exceptional abilities. At that point in time, people choose to come back to India by acquiring education from the Western world, because now they understand that this void can be filled by them, and that eventually benefits them, because even if there's higher income in the Western world, but demand is more in India, which means if you are the only doctor available to a huge number of people and you are the one that specialized, then you are also more irreplaceable. You're also given more recognition, because in the Western world, the creme de la creme is there, which means your irreplaceability is lessened. But in India, because you are one of your kind, because most of the other people and functionaries and efficient people have already moved outside, there's more propensity of you being able to earn. But in terms of quality of life, the quality of life also can be made better here, because once you have become exceptionally bright, once you've proven your mettle, it's not like the Western world is any better. You can gain bungalows and you can go ahead and bring about transformation and technological reformation because you are specialists in country, by ensuring that it isn't just the Western world that develops in terms of technology, etc., but also you can bring about the same change in this country, but it will be more consequential, because in this country it's required more and it will be valued more. For those reasons, extremely proud to propose. Oppose, yes sir.
Now we would request the judges to ask their questions.
Hi Nitiksha, it was good. You've put in some good points on the debate and your motion against the topic. Only one question I have is regarding the identity politics. So it's a very current and relevant topic, and a lot of people kind of put it towards only India. But I think is there all across the world. The form and the factor may change. So how do you see that? Only in case of India. I think it's prevalent everywhere in the world. I've traveled so much in the world. It's prevalent everywhere. It's not only an India scenario.
All right. So I completely agree when you go ahead and say that also the Western world might be fraught with similar problems. Consider race being a problematic concern in America.
Yeah.
But I think
not only race, but
yeah,
other factors as well.
Right, just like the being hegemony, etc., as against other countries, all those kinds of things exist. But the problem is that the developed countries can afford to concomitantly tackle economy, healthcare, identity, because I think they have the resourcefulness, accessibility, but also paraphernalia to fall back on, even if their politics is led astray. But in the developing countries, you have to focalize on things where you're losing out on. There are a lot of things such as the environment that is degrading day by day. You are on the brink of collapse as a developing country. Developed country is still better off because there is geographical disadvantage to developing Latin American, Asian countries. And that is why we think the dislocation of focus in our countries like us, where human capital formation is anyway less, is more hazardous as compared to developed countries. Because developed countries might be talking identity politics, but then they also have the most proficient people. They also have the infrastructure and resourcefulness to attract the most, the creme de la creme from all the countries. But in our country, we are yet to reach that potential. And that's why the focus can't be diversified. It has to be focalized on the priorities, which is economy, healthcare, human capital formation, so on and so forth.
Sure. No, thanks, Nitiksha. Thank you.
Hi, excuse me, everyone. I'm very sorry for this, but I've joined from a different device. I hope it's audible now.
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'll be there for the rebuttal questions. I'm very sorry.
Are there any other questions from the judges? Okay. So now we would like the participating teams to pose their questions by raising their hands. Please do not do so until the floor is open. You have 30 seconds to ask your questions, and we request you to keep the question crisp and precise. Counter questions are not allowed. The floor is now open.
We have first rebuttal question from Chitra Agarwal. Chitra, you may go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm Chitra Agrawal from Teen Chronicles. My question is,
that as per government reports, over 6 lakh Indians have surrendered their passport in the last 5 years. Around 1.1 lakh have surrendered their passport in 2021 itself. Now, these Indian citizens who have surrendered their passport have no intention of returning back to the country. Could you please explain how brain drain is going to help the Indian economy and the country as a whole when so many Indian citizens have surrendered their passport permanently? Thank you.
All right. I think this is what a large chunk of my arguments was about. That brain drain has already happened. It's inexclusive to both the paradigms. Even if proposition is talking about brain drain, they'll talk of it in terms of how many people have been already lost to India. But what from now onwards? We think now it might not be all that detrimental to developing countries because now they're gaining cognizance of the value of human capital that was inexistent before, which means that now schemes are coming about on a more rapid and prompt level where you go ahead and try to retain your creme de la creme in order to bring about technological reformation, in order to ensure that innovations are not pilfered by the West through taking away your human capital formation. So developing country isn't entirely at a loss because with this phenomenon of brain drain, there has been an awakening of sensibilities within the political ecosystem where people and governments are trying to go ahead and retain their people, which leads to a revolutionary change in the country where people try to go ahead and ensure there is more investment in research and development from the GDP, where you don't go ahead and discredit educational institutions and their worth as much, where you go ahead and change the structural constraints that exist for people because of which they switch to Western countries. Structural constraints in terms of just you having to get at least 99.9% to get to due. I mean, that's unachievable for most of the people, right? You relax them. You try to make them
Diksha,
as
your time is up.
Right. So just one concluding statement. I mean, I've been left in the lurch, right? So you have to become as accommodating so that people don't go ahead and look out for equivalent institutes elsewhere. And we think these kinds of structural
Sorry to
changes will come
interrupt,
about.
Nitiksha, you're not allowed to cross the limit.
Right. So thank you all.
Next for the rebuttals, we have Naman Jindal. Naman, you may go ahead with your rebuttal.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Naman, but you are not visible.
I'm not sure. I'll just go ahead with the question. You say that the government of India introduced schemes like the Ramanujan Scholarship in order to retain the human capital that was in India. So you do agree, and so does the government of India, that brain drain is a problem which needs to be addressed and stopped going forward. Is that so?
Hi. I'd like to take that question. Okay, so firstly, the very reason why we mention all these policies in a particular given context, the context that we're talking about, that even if we acknowledge that brain drain is a phenomenon that happens because people are inclined to go to abroad countries for better opportunities and knowledge in things like that, we believe that when you talk about schemes like that, this is something that brain drain is honestly incentivizing the government to do. We believe that when the government actually realizes that there is a phenomenon of people wanting to pursue better education in abroad countries, that is something that acts as an immediate incentive for the government to realize the value of human resource and human capital, wherein it then actually tries to capitalize on these bright minds so as to retain themselves in the country. So we believe that the problem in itself that we are here to acknowledge and discuss about is in itself something that can provide the solution for the same, because in India, because of the larger population, there are higher chances of people becoming complacent because they are not getting their efforts harnessed in the best way possible, which is why I believe that this phenomenon of people being inclined to pursue, this threat of brain drain where people are inclined to go to abroad countries, I think this is something that the government acts on quicker than usual when the government then brings out more policies in order to retain people. So we believe that this entire threat itself of brain drain is going to be the solution for it altogether.
Are there any other questions from the participating teams? So we would like to go ahead with the next team. Thank you for your participation.
I'm again very sorry, everybody, for these technical glitches. They've never happened, so they were unprecedented. So sorry about that.
It's absolutely okay. No issues.
Thank you.
Okay, so next team for the day, Team Budding Debaters from Institute of Management Technology, IMT Ghaziabad, represented by Raghav Daga and Naman Jindal, who would be speaking for the motion. I repeat, next team is Team Budding Debaters from IMT Ghaziabad, represented by Raghav Daga and Naman Jindal, who would be speaking for the motion. You both are requested to be on the cameras, please. and start with the debate.
Okay, sure. Just give us a second. We are switching on our cameras.
Definitely.
Hello, am I audible and visible?
Raghav, you're audible but not visible yet.
Just give it a second. I guess it will automatically come, right? Am I visible now?
You're not visible to me at least. Let me confirm with my team members. No, Raghav, you're not visible.
Am I?
Not yet. Could you please ask the other member to be on the camera?
Okay, sure. I will just rejoin. Give me a second. Okay. I think it's
Please take your time. Please take your time.
Meanwhile, everyone is requested to turn on their cameras. You all will also be evaluated on the basis of your rebuttals. So kindly turn on your camera before asking the rebuttal questions.
All the participating teams are requested to be on the camera, please.
Hello, am I visible and audible?
Yes, Raghav, you are visible as well as audible.
Thank you. Okay.
You may now please start.
Okay, just I will start. So, starting with the debate, we are going for the motion, and our collective aim here is to set the burdens for you. And the first burden that we are saying at it is good for the individual. It is better for the Indians going out and getting better opportunities. And the second that we are going to highlight that it is detrimental for India in terms of getting the right kind of knowledge in the brain drain, if negatively affecting the Indian as a polity and Indian as its economics, everything. So I will be going with the first burden, and Naman will be taking over, and he will be going with the second burden. So bell at the second minute would be really nice. Starting with, I would like to say that the individuals who are experts in their domain or who go out and study different domains, they are better able to get the learnings from the outside institution. India as a nation has very high competition, and it is not easy to get into all the IITs and the IIMs, and besides that, all the other institutions, they do provide opportunities, but these opportunities are not as good as in the terms of the monetary benefits or the life prospects in the terms of the growth and the other things. Therefore, an individual going out and choosing an institution is very much important. Second thing, it's a growth prospect, and which I have already highlighted. And so when you start from a good position in a better company, the perspective of you growing and becoming a CEO of the country, CEO of a company, whether it is Sundar Pichai, we can take the example, or some other person who has excelled in their fields, it grows, and this opportunity nobody wants to strike off from their CVs, right? And third point, that it helps us to get the improved living standards. And why it is important, it's reluctant to point out the importance of the improving living standards of the people. So as a person in India who suffers from the various kind of environmental hazards, who has not enough opportunities, he gets the better opportunities. Now Naman will take over.
Right. So after Raghav, my teammate has highlighted how brain drain is a gain for the individuals. But talking about a country like India or developing nation, India has lost 5,000 millionaires, top 2% of its high net worth individuals to foreign countries because these people prefer to move abroad. How does India lose out? India has spent thousands of dollars in human capital formation. They have invested from the moment they were born to the point that they were skilled enough to move abroad, and the fruits of which are being earned by and being borne by the other nations. So this is how India loses out. Another thing that happens is that it creates a vacuum of skilled individuals at the very top. So the most skilled individuals have moved abroad, and now, so in a country like USA, where it's a melting pot of different people coming together, they have a very highly intellectually stimulating environment. Whereas in India, like our team before us mentioned, the focus is now more on say political instability and other such minute issues which need to be which we need to move forward on. So this is what happens, that we lose out on the high skilled individuals, rather we are left with people who are not so skilled in order to develop India. And
Sorry to
talking about
interrupt, your time is up. Now we would request the judges to ask their questions.
I am okay, Dr. Mohit, please.
Am I audible? Yes. My question is that you have said that India offers limited education options for, especially at the higher level. Therefore, the Indian citizens are trying to move abroad. Therefore, it is good for them. But my question is that if that means you are saying that it is good for those Indians who are going abroad. But what happens to the the kind of investment that India as a society has done on those Indians in their primary education, secondary education, and that brain is then becomes a part of India's accumulated loss. So, what is your opinion on that?
So that is our one of the major burdens that we are like to highlight it in the debate, that India is losing on that particular investment, and it is the harm effect of the brain drain which is happening to India. India needs to take measures to incorporate that we are able to fight the situation, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. We are losing on these particular aspects, and therefore it points out to the fact that brain drain is a bad situation as in India as a whole country, but for individual, like if I go and study abroad, it is beneficial for me, because at the end of the day I am earning more money, I have better standards of living, I will have good growth prospects, I will be at the better companies who have a very good work culture. So in and all, I will be give back some of the money that I earn to my parents who are living in India, and they will also be benefited. So as an individual, I will benefit, but not as a country as a whole.
So to add to this, this is something Nitiksha from Mankey Debaters also agreed to and acknowledged, that this is problematic. This is why our government had to introduce policies like the Ramanujan Scholarship to retain these Indians in the country.
Are there any other questions from the judges? So now we would like the participating teams to pose their questions by raising their hand. Please do not do so until the floor is open. You have 30 seconds to ask your questions, and we request you to keep the question crisp and precise. Counter questions are not allowed, and please, while asking your rebuttals, mention your name and your team name. The floor is now open.
Ashish Kashyap, you may go ahead with your rebuttal. I repeat, Ashish Kashyap, you may go ahead with your rebuttal.
Good afternoon, judges. This is Ashish Kashyap from Team Chronicles. My question from the budding debaters is, you rightly suggested that Indian education infrastructure is not up to the mark, and that is the primary reason why immigrants migrate to foreign countries to seek higher education. But don't you think this also provides an opportunity for the governments to actually invest in the education system? And in case the brain gain is more than the brain drain, the economy is actually benefited from this phenomenon. Thank you. So we are talking about a major if here. If the brain gain is more than the brain drain, which it is not, how many Indians who move forward? Like we had the statistics, 5,000 millionaires Indian of 5,000 millionaires, top 2% of the high net worth individuals have relinquished their passports and moved abroad. And secondly, one second.
So that's not all that, but I just mentioned out that 600 million, almost 6 lakh people have also left the country, and they have retired. They have abandoned their visa passports, Indian passports, so they have ended their citizenship. So this is one thing which we are mentioning here. Second thing that.
Sorry to interrupt, Raghav. The time is up. Next for the rebuttals, we have Nitiksha. Nitiksha, you may go ahead with your question.
Thanks a lot for the recognition. All right, very simple question, right? If I, as a person who's gone from India to a Western world, who's working in a significant company, say like Google or JP Morgan, which are publicly funded, it's likely that I am becoming a representative of a developing country. And because companies like Google and their industries and how they run and outsource work actually are detrimental to developing countries because of environmental hazards, etc., I am able to represent the concerns of the developing country and thereby benefiting the developing country from afar. So why do you think it's still a loss for the country, for my home country, when I'm working for the home country in the host country?
To answer that question, I would like to say that we have to evaluate the gains and the losses of the entire situation. So, in order to assess that if this is a small gain that we are getting at the cost of what we are losing in the terms of the human capital which goes out, I don't believe that it is anyhow strengthening the point that we can lose on such a huge population, and acknowledge that brain drain is not happening, or it is a correct phenomenon, or brain gain is very much there. So
to add to this, the startup culture in India budding right now is a very good example for this. If these skilled individuals live in India, they start up their own businesses and form that entire ecosystem in India. So instead of someone representing India in Google, you'll be having a Google being set up in India, or a company of such like a substitute company which would put the interests of India and the domestic country at heart, instead of Google and say you're representing India there.
Are there any other questions from the participating teams? Thank you, team budding debaters. We would like to go ahead with the next team.
Team IM Rohtak had to withdraw their name at the last moment due to a scheduled exam, so they will not be participating in the competition. Next, we have Team NPA from National Institute of Industrial Engineering, Mumbai, represented by Yashvi Sharma and Tushar Dikshit, who would be speaking against the motion.
Yeah, just before we start, can we have a quick voice check? And can you see?
Yes.
Are we audible and visible?
Yeah, both of you are audible and visible. You may please start.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. We're Team NPA and we'll be speaking against the motion. So, according to the Global Migration Report, India has the largest diaspora in the world. With a number of over 20 million, India also received the highest remittance of $83 billion, and this amounts to a whopping 3.4% of India's GDP from Indians living abroad. Today, the Indian diaspora is more prosperous than ever before, and its involvement in India's development is increasing. Now, this contributes by the way of remittances, investments, lobbying for India, promoting Indian culture abroad, and for building a good image of India by their intelligence and industry. Yet, there is a media-generated hype of the buzzword brain drain, fueled by the trend of sensationalizing the most trivial issues by misinterpreting facts and citing examples of fiction, like the movie Swades. Let's try to debunk the myth that brain drain is creating more problem than it is solving. The proponents of the brain drain theory mainly argue that India is exporting its human capital abroad, but an analysis of facts state otherwise. According to the Ministry of Home Affairs, 6 lakh Indians have given up their citizenship over the last 5 years. This is less than 0.01% per year, The loss of export of brain power to IT sector is a mere $2 billion, which is just 2.5% of the remittances sent home by the expats. So the expats help the economy with their investments back home in critical sectors like infrastructure, education, health, renewables, etc., and are also helping the community development programs like village adoptions. Thus, they cannot be blamed for all the drain and no benefits. Now, NRI remittances have been the mainstay of India's forex receipts, which is now at an unprecedented $600 billion. Juxtapose this with the situation when the country was facing the balance of payment crisis. Further, youngsters going abroad actually have very limited skill sets, and they hugely improve their skills abroad, mainly through job experience. So returnees bring back much more brain power. Some label it as brain circulation. Internal migration of the skilled and unskilled people has resulted in the formation of industrial tech hubs such as Delhi, NCR, Bengaluru, and Hyderabad. Over to Tushar.
Yeah, thank you, Ashwi. So the rise of the economic prowess of India is the rise of liberal economy and the open door policy. India has long been professing the liberal principles like the General Agreement on Trade of Services at the WTO. And in a liberalized economy, along with the free movement of capital, there always be a free movement of labors as well. The movement of workforce is decided by the market forces of demand and supply, and hence, as our economy grows, there will be a reverse brain gain as well. For example, many Indians returned to India during the US economic crisis of 2008, and this debunks the myth that Indians are leaving country permanently. The Indian diaspora is helping build brand India, not only on the economic front, but on the political front as well. Many people of Indian origin hold top political position in many countries, and a glaring example of this was the political clout of the glaring example of political clout of India was evident in the US nuclear deal of 2008. Then the Indian diaspora is also a source of growing soft power of India, in which India ranked third in the future growth potential of the Global Soft Power Index, and hence the institutionalization of diaspora diplomacy has become a hallmark of Indian foreign policies. It's not saying that we are not missing on the services of the skilled personnel going abroad, but in the current scenario, the Indian diaspora is helping us solve more problems than they are creating. So what we should do to get the best of both worlds, to reap the benefit of expatriate while simultaneously harnessing their potential? The answer is simple. We need the policy intervention and structural changes. We need to systematically change to build an overall environment that would motivate the intellectual capital to stay in country. For example, raising the R&D spending to 2% to GDP. And we should also focus on changes like ease of doing business and curbing corruption to build an environment conducive to promoting circular migration and returning migration. Ultimately, I would like to say that brain goes where money is, brain goes where brains are, and brain goes where it is valued. With a sustained effort of making a conducive environment where skill of Indians is adequately valued and appropriately rewarded, we can surely have the best of both worlds. That was all from our side. Thank you.
Now we would request the judges to ask their questions.
Very well presented thoughts, Tushar and Vaibhav. I have only one question. When you've talked so much about so much numbers or statistics about remittances and people coming out or going, settling there, I didn't see any numbers or statistics on the reverse brain drain or the people who are coming out. That you have only presented as maybe a few liners description, but no data there.
So, sir, actually, we derive data from reliable resources. We do not take informal resources into consideration, and the Ministry of Home Affairs or the Ministry of External Affairs do not have an exact data on the same. So, we decided to not present some fact from some casual news article or something like that. So, that's why we were not able to present any concrete data on reverse brain drain, but it is definitely happening. And a very example of it is that there was a hospital in Kolkata which was being built with the latest technology, and at least 20 NRI doctors who have like over 10 years of experience returned back to Kolkata to help the poor and help their country as well. So reverse brain drain is definitely happening, just that we do not have a concrete data. It is also because of the fact that the policy of the government of India is mainly supportive of the fact of the Indians going abroad and working there and bringing back remittances. So since the thirst of the government is on Indians carrying our legacy to the other nations, I think that's why we do not have an exact data on the reverse brain gain that we are experiencing.
Okay. Thanks.
Are there any other questions from the judges?
Yes. So Tushar and Yashvi, good presentation. Just wanted to ask you this question, that you said that the brain will move where the money is and brain will move where the brains are. So regarding that, I want to know that if the brain gain is such a universal phenomenon, it has always existed in some form, it will exist no matter what. Why is India not gaining from brain gain from other countries? What are your opinions on that? No mention on such fact, because we are discussing here essentially the migration of brain from one place to another. Why is India not benefiting from brain gain from other countries?
Sir, we are definitely benefiting from brain gain from other countries because if you are aware, there's a term called Bangalore. Bangalore is a term for foreign nationals who are being moved to India to work. And there have been various offices in cities like Bangalore and Hyderabad, like offices of Microsoft and Google, where people from different nationality are coming and working. So we are also gaining, just that it is not as significant as when we juxtapose it with the amount of Indians that are living in India to work in US and other Western countries. So I think that's why we do not have an exact number. Also because in a way, since our focus has been too much on bringing back remittances, we consider the brain gain as a negative thing. That's what we consider, because we think that it is going to take money from our country and transfer it. Since we have a colonial legacy as well of taking money from India to the other countries, I think we are slightly averse to the brain gain phenomenon. But I think we are working in the right direction. The policies like Inspire has been mentioned, and there are different other policies and frameworks of the government of India which are trying to gain the brain. But I think because of the reasons that I mentioned, that it is not very prominent right now.
Now we would like the participating teams to pose their questions by raising their hands. Please do not do so until the floor is open. You have 30 seconds to ask your questions, and we request you to keep the question crisp and precise. Counter questions are not allowed. The floor is now open.
Yeah. Hi. So I had a question for.
Sorry, Naman, your hand was raised before we opened the floor for rebuttal, so your question will not be considered. We will take the question of Chitra Agarwal. Chitra, you may go ahead with the rebuttal.
Thank you so much. I'm Chitra Agarwal from Team Chronicles. My question is that ISRO is catching up with NASA, and NASA had 2 successful rover missions. We know that India failed in its mission, and 35% of Indians, they are working in NASA right now. So don't you think if those people who are staying abroad and they are working for NASA, had those Indian population, had those Indian diaspora been working in India, it would have led to a successful mission from our own country? Also, wouldn't it have helped ISRO overall to deploy more successful satellites and missions worldwide? Thank you.
That's a very good question, but I would like to point out that that is a classic case of cherry picking. We have just failed in one of the missions. I'm not aware whether you know the fact that ISRO is the only space mission which have sent over 100 satellites in a single rocket. And the business arm of ISRO, that was Antrix, is one of the major power of our soft power diplomacy. So ISRO has been gaining leaps and bounds, and the name of ISRO is very respectable in the space and aeronautics department. And I agree that NASA is currently having 35% of the Indians, but that doesn't diminish the fact that ISRO is doing really, really well, and the scientists of NASA are facilitating the collaboration of NASA and ISRO. There have been various collaborations of NASA and ISRO, like the Aditya mission, like the L1 mission. So I think these would not have been possible if we do not have kind of a softer diplomacy of Indian scientists and great minds of India working in USA. So I think that answers your question.
We have next question from Naman Jindal. Naman, you may go ahead.
So you focused on knowledge transfer. I want to ask you, do you think reverse brain drain, of which we do not have any official statistics, is the best way to gain knowledge? Do you think joint ventures or just simply strategic partnerships are a better way to go about gaining knowledge from foreign, more skilled countries? For example, say Suzuki, or tying up with Russia for hydro projects and so on. Do you think more Indians to Russia for 20 years and bring them back in order to gain that expertise? Isn't a simple partnership a better way to go about it?
I am not able to listen to him properly. Can you please repeat the question? There is a lot of noise coming from your end.
Okay. Am I audible now? Yeah. So do you think strategic partnerships and say tie-ups or joint ventures is a better way to go about gaining knowledge from more skilled, more technically advanced countries, instead of sending Indians to the said country for 20 years and then bringing them back, of which we do not have any official statistics, or is it not acknowledged by any government sources? Isn't that a better way? Just tie up with countries, have joint ventures, have
Definitely. So I
partnerships.
think you are confusing institutionalization with individual ownership. So the individual members are going on their own, and that is something that you cannot prevent in a democracy and in a knowledge economy. While you're talking about institutionalization and joint collaborations and joint partnership, I think the government of India with its various departments are already doing that. We have already have private partnership. We have provisions for external commercial borrowings. We have provisions of strategic arms of Russia and USA investing into our country. That's something that the government can do. But the government as such on an institutional level cannot prevent an individual from exploring his or her opportunities abroad. And I think that's why we are having both of them simultaneously. While we are focusing on public-private partnerships in exploration, in scientific researches, etc., the students and the IT sector workers are going abroad in search of their individual good. Thank you.
Manogna, you can go ahead with your rebuttal.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Manogna from Team Excel. Thanks, team, for your very well layout points. My question is actually based on the remittance point that you made. So actually there is data which says that as on 2010, $55 billion or 3.9% of Indian GDP was given out as remittances back to India. Do you really think having just a 3.9% of GDP would complement for giving out so much of a human capital?
Okay, I'll start the answer by giving you the latest figure. Latest figure states the figure of 2020 is $83 billion and 3.4% of the GDP. I would also like to point out that India is the largest recipient of remittances as a percentage of the GDP. Secondly, as we have said in our speech, that the amount of loss that India is facing, there has been two different studies to conduct the amount of losses that we are facing. One study concluded at $2 billion and the other study concluded it at $16 billion. $2 billion is 1/40th of $83 billion that we are receiving, and 16 is 20% of what we are receiving. So I think since you are too focused on the economics of data, even the economics of data favors remittances over the loss, that the potential loss, which we do not have an exact data, but only an estimation as compared to the figure that we have. I think it still outweighs the speculation of the amount of loss that we might incur if we haven't sent our, our workforce, skilled workforce to the other countries. I think that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Team NPA. Now we would like to go ahead with the next team.
So next team. Adhyay and Priyanshu speaking against the motion.
Hi everyone, could you please confirm that I'm visible and audible?
Yes, you are visible and audible as well.
Could you check the same for me as well?
Yeah, both of you are visible and audible.
Great.
Alright, shall I start?
Yeah, yes, you may proceed.
The House believes that the brain drain phenomenon is a gain for Indians but a loss for a developing nation like India. A very good afternoon to the judges and everyone else present today. For the longest time, we as a country have viewed labour as a human capital and have defined our thoughts on brain drain accordingly. However, we, Team PGDM representing I Am Koriko, are here to tell you why it is time to ditch the old definition and start looking at labour as social capital instead. As a society, we tend to view those choosing to move abroad for education or work through a very negative lens, as we feel that they are taking away the country's resources. However, this is a very short-sighted approach to the issue, and we often fail to see the long-term benefits that such emigration offers. When an Indian moves abroad for higher education, it is usually because they were unwilling to compete with lakhs of other aspirants for a very limited number of seats in the institutes here. By going to international universities, they are exposed to new opportunities and new schools of thought, and these students in turn push for change in the education system back home. Indian colleges have now realized the need to compete with their international counterparts, and we see this in how every Indian B school is now chasing the coveted global triple accreditation. ISB, the Indian School of Business, is a business school that is just 21 years young, but has already partnered with some of the best schools in the world, such as Wharton and Kellogg, and now competes with the best B schools globally in world rankings. Whether for studies or work, an Indian moving abroad quickly learns about new cultures and perspectives, and this helps them grow into global citizens. As many of them move back, they bring this culture back to India. This has resulted in metros like Gurgaon, Mumbai, and Bangalore becoming world class cities that offer the best of art, food, and cinema. An offshoot of this is that we are exposed to varied experiences while still being rooted in India and these cities, and the lure of an international lifestyle becomes far less enticing. In an increasingly connected world, the Indian diaspora is what bridges our country and ensures a regular inflow of goods, information, capital, and ideas. By continuing to visit regularly and collaborate professionally with people in India, the diaspora contributes to a strong knowledge transfer back home.
Now we need to understand that the world no longer exists in silos of individual countries. With globalization running its course and data transfer and travel becoming more affordable than ever, those who immigrate have found it easier to construct and maintain socio-economic ties across these international boundaries. Parallelly, through their success and visibility where they stay, non-resident Indians also influence the economic and social policies of their host countries to be more conducive towards India. This widespread influence is not limited to just these spheres. When these immigrants move abroad, they carry a set of values and traditions with them, in turn helping grow awareness about India and its culture and dispelling misplaced stereotypes. In recent years, there has been an increasing trend in the number of immigrants who move back to India to lead change in the education and corporate space. Ivy League educated academics like Raghuram Rajan and Krishnamurti Subramaniam have entered public service and contributed to India's development. Nitin Mantri, the CEO of Alliance Tire Group, Kumar Srinivasan, the COO of Hike, Satyaki Ghosh, the CEO of Domestic Textiles at Aditya Birla Group, are all CXOs who relinquished their foreign jobs for Indian ones. Unicorns such as Rebel Food, Lenskart, and Mama Earth were all started up by founders with an international education. What we need to firmly acknowledge is that by propagating notions like the brain drain and trying to stop people from emigrating, we are preventing some of the brightest minds from reaching their true potential. Today, the world is a global village, and those who move abroad continue to give back to India in a multitude of ways, possibly even more than some of their counterparts back home. To make the most of this social capital, we need to address the root causes instead. Rigid corporate hierarchies, rampant corruption, gender inequality, and
Sorry
poor
to interrupt.
education and healthcare
Your time is up.
that make people want to move out in the first place. Thank you.
Now we would like to request the judges to ask their questions.
Am I audible? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Good presentation, PGDM. I am Kuzikod. My question is that you said that the world is a global village now, and the benefits that the Indian expatriates are bringing to India is also of much higher value than those who are able to contribute the same from back here in this country. But my question is that don't you think the magnitude of contribution they have given to that foreign country, and competitors are always competing with each other. So if that same Indian expatriate has given a much significantly higher contribution to a rival country, let's say US or UK or Russia, and a paltry little bit of contribution back to the country home, we are just counting the small paltry contribution back to the country, but not looking at the much bigger contribution over life he has given to the rival country. What's your opinion on that?
All right, thank you for that question, sir. So, how I would like to approach that question is from two perspectives. The first is that definitely I don't think it would be possible to compare the magnitude of, say, an ex-person who has graduated from one premier institute and has moved abroad, and their counterpart who is possibly working in India. But what we need to look at is the long-term perspective. So while this isn't something that we can stop, this movement of talent and brains is going to keep happening, both into and out of India. But what we need to understand is over the long term, this has contributed to the globalization and, as you mentioned, India turning into a global village. And yes, in terms of the magnitude or say a monetary compensation that they are contributing to either a USA or versus what they're contributing to India, it definitely can't be compared. But how we as a team would like to look at it is from a more holistic perspective in terms of how they're contributing over the long term and say not as an individual, but as an expatriate community altogether.
Are there any other questions from the judges?
No, none from me. Thank you.
Now we would like the participating teams to pose their questions by raising their hands. Please do not do so until the floor is open. You have 30 seconds to ask your questions, and we request you to keep the questions crisp and precise. Counter questions are not allowed. And please mention your team name and your name while asking your rebuttals. The floor is open now.
First, we have Ashish Kashyap. Ashish, you may go ahead with your rebuttal.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. This is Ashish Kashyap from Team Chronicles. And my question to you is, you mentioned scholars like Raghuram Rajan and Subramaniam, so who migrated to India but came back to contribute towards the development of the country. We have many other such scholars who once went to foreign countries, researched there and developed patents which were registered in the United States. According to the UN report, the patents registered in the United States by Indians is staggering high. Don't you think if patents were registered in India, it would have certainly helped in the growth and development of the economy?
Absolutely, Ashish. That's a great point that you have raised. Again, there are two perspectives to that. So the first is that, yes, there are a staggering number of Indians who are registering their, or Indian origin Americans who are registering their patents in the USA. But the first thing that we need to see is if those people continue to study in India or continue to do their research in India, would they be able to reach the same level of success that they would? So, for example, a CXO like, say, Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella, would they have been able to reach the same position if they continue to work in India? That's the first food for thought. And secondly, even if we do assume that they would, we do have the same kind of research facilities or the infrastructure that the USA provides, there is the aspect that at the end of the day, like we mentioned, we cannot stop the movement of brains from happening. So there will always be people who feel that their talent or their efforts will be better valued elsewhere. And it's not like they can be stopped. So instead of that, what we need to focus on is again building the kind of infrastructure so that people don't feel the need to move to the USA and they can do that kind of quality research or patent research in India itself.
Next, we have Vishwanath. Vishwanath, you may go ahead with your rebuttal.
Hi, thank you so much for that perspective on how brain drain is actually benefiting India. But given the argument that you posed that people who are abroad, who are representing India, are actually benefiting it, aren't they actually spreading a one-sided rose-tinted perspective of what India actually is? Because they're actually generationally disconnected from what is plaguing India right now. And on top of that, is it not just going to lead to like a superficial changing of what actually can benefit India and not inherently change the fabric of our social structure?
All right, thank you, Vishwanath, for that question. And here I would like to bring in a personal perspective of mine. So I have actually traveled a fair bit solo to a lot of Indian tourist destinations and met a lot of people who stay in the hostels as foreigners. And what they have mentioned is that a primary reason for them to come travel to India or visit different places, and this is beyond the regular tourist infrastructure of, say, Agra, the Taj Mahal, etc. These people actually found out from their Indian friends abroad who told them about India and told them that India is more than just a land of snake charmers, which is usually the perspective that foreigners tend to have. That there's a lot more to it, and there are booming metropolitan cities as well, which they like to explore. And as a result, if you see in terms of tourism, the tourism to other cities, I mean, to firstly metropolitan cities and also other regions within India are expanding significantly. So yes, definitely there would be some amount of rose tint that would be shown by Indians moving abroad, but it's still helping bring in a change, and I feel like over time that will definitely improve.
Next, we have Tushar. Tushar, you may go ahead with your question.
Thank you. So you are basically indirectly talking about the softer diplomacy, and you mentioned tourism. So I would like to point out the fact that in spite of the fact that France do not have a lot of expatriate Frenchmen working abroad, the Eiffel Tower alone attracts over 10 times the amount of tourists that India receives annually. Further countries like Japan and Germany have developed its soft power by retaining its human capital through companies like Toyota, Mitsubishi, Volkswagen, and through scientific collaborations due to its vast talent pool that they have, while at the same time not featuring the top 20 of the global diaspora numbers. Don't you think think that that debunks the myth that soft power, that India's soft power is driven by expatriates alone and not like other factors like the spiritual leadership and the Bollywood and the cuisine of India, etc.
Great point, Tushar. Just for my understanding on that, it's definitely, I would not say that the diaspora is the single driver that is pushing this change, but it is one of the biggest. And to speak about the specific points that you mentioned, so for example, say Bollywood or Indian cuisine, it is the diaspora that goes out to the world and then takes these things there. So, say if there isn't an Indian community staying in a particular place, then we wouldn't have an Indian cinema hall there and they wouldn't be screening such movies. And secondly, in terms of, sorry, is my time up?
Yes, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Team PGDM. Now we would like to go ahead.
So thank you everybody. We would be heading towards a 10-minute break. Post that, we'll resume the competition. Thank you so much for joining in. After 10 minutes, we'll be back.
Welcome back. Before we start again, let us take a moment to reflect on the legacies of the man of the masses and India's great son, late Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji.
सत्ताईस मई 1964 पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू का निधन हो गया। देश गहरे विषाद में डूब गया। सभी के मन में एक ही सवाल था, कौन बनेंगे नए प्रधानमंत्री, कौन करेंगे इस महान सभ्यता का नेतृत्व।
आफ्टर नेहरू नेहरू के बाद कौन होगा, तो ये उनको इस बात का एहसास था। जब उनसे पूछा गया कि इस कमी को दूर कैसे करेंगे, तो उन्होंने कहा कि पंडित जी ने अपने व्यक्तित्व की वजह से, टावरिंग पर्सनैलिटी की वजह से, उन्होंने इस पद को शक्ति प्रदान की और मैं प्रयास करूंगा इस पद से शक्ति प्राप्त करने की, जिससे कि मैं देश की सेवा कर सकूं।
2 अक्टूबर 1904 के दिन काशी के पास मुगल सराय में जन्मे लाल बहादुर का पूरा व्यक्तित्व ही गांधीवाद का जीता जागता स्वरूप था।
उनकी सादगी, पहली बात तो धोती पहनते थे। ये आम आदमी को उससे बड़ा भरोसा हो जाता था कि हमारे जैसे है।
पिता की छत्रछाया बचपन में ही छिन गई थी। विधवा मां के साथ ननिहाल चले गए, वहीं पर परवरिश हुई। 1921 में जब स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन में कूद पड़े तो निष्ठा और दृढ़ता के प्रमाण मिलते चले गए। 17 वर्ष की आयु से स्वाधीनता तक लगभग 9 साल जेल में काटे। रहीमन हीरा कब कहे लाख टका मेरो मोल। पार्टी कार्य में उनकी निष्ठा से प्रभावित होकर नेहरू ने लाल बहादुर शास्त्री को रेल मंत्री नियुक्त किया, परंतु 1953 में घटी एक रेल दुर्घटना की नैतिक जिम्मेदारी लेते हुए शास्त्री जी ने मंत्रालय से इस्तीफा दे दिया।
उन्होंने वो इस्तीफा देकर राजनीति में नए मूल्यों की स्थापना की।
नेहरू जी के मंत्रिमंडल में कई विशिष्ट पदों पर अपनी छाप छोड़ते हुए वे गृह मंत्री नियुक्त हुए। 9 जून 1964 पंडित नेहरू के निधन के बाद स्वयं पंडित नेहरू के चहेते लाल बहादुर शास्त्री ने भारत के दूसरे प्रधानमंत्री का पदभार संभाला। कुल 4 शब्दों में उस मृदुभाषी व्यक्ति ने देश को एक नारा दिया, जय जवान जय किसान।
उन्होंने उस समय इस बात का एहसास कर लिया था, देश के अंदर हमें अपने जो भंडार है अनाज के उन्हें पूरा भर देना है और एक जो भारत के गौरव और गरिमा को देश विश्व में खड़ा कर देना है, वो अगर संभव है तो जवानों और किसानों की जय जयकार करने से ही है।
Lal Bahadur Shastri, Prime Minister of India, speaking on Independence Day in 1965.
हम हथियारों का जवाब हथियारों से दें।
5 सितंबर 1965 पाकिस्तान ने भारत के खिलाफ खुली जंग का ऐलान कर दिया। जवाब में भारतीय सेना पंजाब से सीमा पार कर गई। जब तक संयुक्त राष्ट्र की पहल पर युद्ध विराम हुआ, तब तक भारत की सेनाएं पाकिस्तानी सेना पर हावी हो चुकी थी।
वो किसी के दबाव में आने वाले व्यक्ति नहीं थे। जब ऐसी घटना होती है तो बहुत ज्यादा अंतर्राष्ट्रीय दबाव होते हैं। अगर आप दब गए तो झुक जाएंगे, वो नहीं दबे। लेकिन फिर शायद दोनों देशों की भलाई सोचकर वो युद्ध विराम पर राजी हो गए।
10 जनवरी 1966 ताशकंद। जिन आदर्शों के नैतिक बल का मजा वो पाकिस्तान को चखा चुके थे, आज उन्हीं आदर्शों की उदारता से उन्होंने समझौते के कागजात पर दस्तखत कर दिए। लेकिन अभी समझौते के दस्तावेज पर स्याही सूखी भी ना थी कि उसी रात शास्त्री जी को दिल का दौरा पड़ा और उनकी मृत्यु हो गई। गांधी जी ने कहा था कि शत्रु का दिल जीतना ही वास्तविक जीत है। सुदूर ताशकंद में जब स्वर्गीय लाल बहादुर शास्त्री को कोसिजन के साथ साथ खुद जनरल अयूब खान ने कंधा दिया, तो लगा जैसे शास्त्री जी बापू के फलसफे को चरितार्थ कर दुनिया से रुखसत हो गए थे। लाल बहादुर शास्त्री केवल 18 महीनों तक भारत के प्रधानमंत्री रहे, लेकिन अपने प्रधानमंत्रित्व के छोटे से कार्यकाल में शास्त्री जी ने भारत के हर नागरिक के कानों में आत्मसम्मान और आत्मबल का मंत्र फूंक दिया था। अपने व्यक्तित्व से उन्होंने निष्काम कर्म और पुरुषार्थ की वो मिसाल कायम की कि उनकी गिनती भारतीय इतिहास के सर्वोच्च महापुरुषों में होती है।
Moving ahead, we now invite Team Excel from Xavier School of Management, Delhi, represented by Manogna S. and Viswanath Vaidyanathan, who will be speaking for the motion.
Thank you. 131. 131 out of 189. Let that sink in. Good afternoon, everyone. We, Team Excel, will be presenting our belief that brain drain, regardless of how beneficial it is for individuals, is scarily damaging on the country as a nation. Taking inspiration from Lal Bahadur Shastri himself, let's look at one very underrated, criminally underrated aspect of brain drain. Its impact on those who matter the most, the people of our country. The very fabric of our society and what we as a people prioritize, and in turn what we enable our political leaders to prioritize. The intellectual drain causes proportions of the populace who can actually make a difference to go abroad, because they'd rather go abroad where opportunities, remuneration, the quality of life is vastly superior. We are not able to challenge the status quo because those who can challenge the status quo are not willing to stay back. Increasing numbers of Indians are moving abroad, especially in the workforce age group. They are highly educated, they can actually affect change, but they're not staying back because remuneration, opportunities, and the Human Development Index are so much better out there. Remember when I said 131 out of 189? Yeah, we rank 131 out of 189 countries for the Human Development Index. Looking at the political side of things, the image of India as a developing country is not going to ever change in perception or in reality unless and until there are grassroots level changes across the nation. Firstly, due to the impact on the government coffers from the 23,000 millionaires who have left the country since 2014, we don't have enough money to go back into our infrastructure. Secondly, due to a lack of this development infrastructure, the capabilities that we can actually tap into aren't being tapped into. 70% of our roads are still mud roads, which creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where our roads are bad, our infrastructure is bad, because of which people don't want to stay back, because of which the status quo is never going to change. Further, less than 50% still have regular access to clean drinking water. Unless and until we affect change to the extent that people stay back, we are not going to see our country develop to where we want it to be.
Thank you. Losses amount to $2 billion a year losses amount to $2 billion a year from every single field of human capital. In absolute terms, India is among the countries which lose most highly skilled workers to foreign markets. Sadly, India has become a supplier of young and well-trained people for European countries. The Global Wealth Migration Review report revealed that nearly 7,000 millionaires and billionaires, or 2% of the total HNWIs, that is high net worth individuals, left the country in 2019 alone. Do you ask me why is this a problem? It's not. But it's costing the country billions of lost tax revenue. Now, if we look at how much our education sector is taking a hit, as of 2018, nearly 7.5 lakh Indian students were studying abroad. Several news reports suggest that more than half of the first rankers in class 10 and 12 exams during 1996 to 2015 period had migrated and were studying abroad or employed overseas. The toppers is just a tip of the iceberg of student migration. In a recently released report from the Union HRD Ministry about fee structure of IITs said that the government spends 8 lakh on every student for a 4-year BE degree course against a meager 2 lakh paid by the student, which means for every student that is migrating abroad, 6 lakh rupees is the cost or overhead spent by the government. Estimated at 30 million with a presence in 189 countries, the Indian diaspora produces an annual economic income of about $400 billion, almost 30% of India's GDP, which is actually earned by only 0.1% of India's population, which is 10% of India's national income. We truly believe that these negatives outweigh the positives. How much ever remittance we are getting from the NRIs back home, it will not make up for the human capital that is lost. So we agree with the House saying that brain drain is detrimental to the country. Thank you.
We would like to request the judges to ask their questions.
Hi, Vishwanath. Good points that you've presented. One question I had was on the challenges that you presented in terms of whether it is infrastructure, whether it is education, whether it is R&D facilities or likewise. But don't you think that also creates an opportunity for people to kind of look at those and create business opportunities out of it? Either you look at glass half empty or glass half full. As an entrepreneur, I myself believe there's huge opportunity in India to kind of look at those challenges and not run away from those. How do you look at those?
Absolutely. So I think that's what I meant. It's a vicious cycle in itself, that unless and until people can see, a little ounce of change towards that direction and have some hope that, our leaders will take us seriously and take steps that matter to the people at an intrinsic level. That doesn't happen. People go abroad. People who can actually affect that change aren't here. So that opportunity just goes by.
On a lighter note, leaders nowhere work the way you're hoping that they will work. But okay, good point. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the judges?
Yeah, hi. Good points, Team Excel. My question to you would be that you have said that the Indian expatriates outside are generating value, like you said, reported a number $400 billion. So that's a small, and what they could have contributed in India would have been far insignificantly smaller than that. But my question to you is that does that not stand, because the opportunities outside of India are far also more valuable, and that is why they are standing on the shoulder of a previously established giant work in abroad countries. That is why they're able to contribute so much to the outside economies.
Yes, sir. One major point to note over here is that when we're talking about brain drain, we're talking about people who have got their tertiary education in India and then fleeing to other countries for either masters, extreme high masters, or PhDs, or their employment opportunities. We are not really taking into consideration the people who have been born and brought up in those countries. So we don't really take into account these specific set of people who haven't been educated or utilized Indian resources and contributing to other countries' resources. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Now we would like the participating teams to pose their questions by raising their hands. Please do not do so until the floor is open. You have 30 seconds to ask your questions, and we request you to keep the question crisp and precise. Counter questions are not allowed. The floor is open now.
Team Chronicles, Chitra, you were supposed to ask 4 questions, and I think you have asked those. So Team Chronicles won't be participating in the rebuttal question anymore. and Yashvi and Nitiksha, both of your hands were raised before the floor was open. So, can Dipanshan, can you announce again that the floor is open now?
Sure. You have 30 seconds to ask your questions, and we request you to keep the question crisp and precise. Counter questions are not allowed. The floor is open now.
So, Yashvi, please go ahead with your question.
Okay, hope I'm audible. So you mentioned that India ranks 131 in the Human Capital Index. Now, the Human Capital Index measures how much a country has lost due to lack of education and healthcare. I would like to state the fact that the IITians and the people that have already, the educated people that are leaving the country are already included as an asset in the HCI. And in terms of HCI, the people that are leaving are not exactly a loss. And you also said that we are lacking innovation capabilities because these people are moving abroad. But despite that, India is the world's third largest startup ecosystem. So what are your thoughts on that?
Just a correction here. I mentioned 131 out of 189 for the Human Development Index to indicate that the quality of life for the average Indian isn't great. Now, whether or not we are great as an ecosystem of startups, that's wonderful. But are the benefits of those startups reaching the entire population or a very small proportion of it? That's the question that we're raising.
Next, we have Nitiksha. Please go ahead with your question.
A lot for the recognition. So my question is simple. Because your speeches were loaded with statistics that keep changing, here's a few lines of analysis, right? International Monetary Fund is a Western organization, very consequential to all the countries because it is an international platform. Point in time, Geeta Gopinath is able to escalate her stature there. She's able to democratize its accessibility in terms of bringing about structural changes that make it more inclusive for developing countries because she has that kind of a stature now. Why do you think that's such a disadvantage to countries like India?
It's not as much of a disadvantage as it's not actually creating effect. Whether or not she's able to create change in a Western organization and a Western body is not trickling down to our country, at least not in the immediate realm of possibility. So unless and until that happens, I don't believe that India is benefiting as a country. But again, for her, Geeta Gopinath, it's great for her as an individual because she has that international stature, as you mentioned yourself.
Next, we have Priyanshi. Please go ahead with your question.
Great points made by your team. So my question is that usually in India, you see conglomerates where they are family driven. And don't you think that the individuals, if they would have stayed in India, they wouldn't have been able to reach the top of such companies and take the helm in the case of like Birlas or Ambanis. And now that they went outside, in case of Google or Microsoft, they were able to do that.
Hi, Priyanshi. Thank you for the question. I'll take this on. Just a clarification, are you saying that people won't be able to prioritize their family and careers equally?
No.
Just to get your question right.
No. So what I meant was that in India, we have this family-driven culture wherein, the son or the daughter of the owner only, they only take the helm, helm the position, like the CXO positions. And you don't really get an opportunity to climb up the ladder, unlike in the Western countries.
Okay, you're talking about nepotism, right?
Yeah.
Just taking this out of the question for a second, nepotism exists in all countries as so much as in India it does. But unfortunately, when we're actually talking about, how do we put this, development in terms of career trajectories, all of the countries do have equal opportunity. The only issue over here is that people are not getting that platform in order to realize their exact ability or even show off their performance properly. So that is the issue over here, and that is why people are actually leaving the country. So I wouldn't say nepotism would be the highest priority when you are looking at in terms of migration of people who are even skilled and talented up to a level of the people who would probably have been succeeded in the situation.
Additionally, even while nepotism isn't that highly prioritized right now, it is just reinforcing the fact that it's still not benefiting our country, because like opportunities are blocked. That's just going to push more talented people out the country rather than retaining them.
Now we can proceed with the next team.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
We may now invite Team Chronicles from Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Delhi, represented by Chitra Agarwal and Ashish Kashyap, who will be speaking for the motion.
Are we audible?
Yes, Chitra, you're audible.
Thank you so much. So the problem of brain drain has been plaguing India since the dawn of independence, and this has escalated in the last 2 decades. So is this just some media hype? Today we Team Chronicles are here to tell you why we think India is in deep trouble because of the problem of brain drain. So first of all, highly skilled individuals, they leave the country. Now this actually leads to a wide gap between the rich and the poor. This also leads to technological gap. These people who are highly skilled tend to generate a lot of IPRs and patents in developed countries like USA, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and so on and so forth. These countries are able to exploit these IPRs and patents, and finally, we are left at the mercy. Secondly, these people who tend to go outside India, they tend to gain skills and education in India itself. But they are going to utilize these skills that they are gaining here in countries abroad. So effectively, they are not contributing anything towards the GDP of the country. Now let's take the example of doctors in India. Doctors, they gain education in India and finally they move out of the country and practice abroad. Now when we talk about the ratio, that is how many doctors are there in India, then as per estimates, for 2,400 Indians, we have only one Indian doctor, whereas for 1,300 Americans, we have one Indian doctor. Look at the staggering numbers. We do not have enough doctors in the country. When we talk about one of the reports in The Wire by Mark Scheim in 2021, he had stated that because of excess brain drain, there are excess deaths in the country, and that leads to a revenue loss for India, which tunes to $3.5 billion. Economic Survey 2019 to 2020 also states that India spends around 88 billion of its amount of money on education and upskilling its employees, out of which around 7.5 is spent on primary education and around 5.3 is spent on tertiary education or secondary education. Now, when we talk about all this, isn't all this lost revenue for the country if people are going abroad? Also, we can look at the fact that it is younger generation who tends to move out of their homes in search of greener pastures outside. So when these people, they are moving abroad, they tend to leave the older or the elderly people in their homes behind. Now this old population in India, which is almost 6% of the Indian population to the tune of 81.6 million, is projected to be dependent completely on social welfare schemes of the government as per a report by Bloomberg Quint.
It is a very common observation that whenever India embarks on a journey to implement new technologies or infrastructure project, foreign advice assistance is required. Examples being Delhi Metro and Bullet Train project. It is quite shocking to know that 35% of the employees at NASA are Indians, and about 38% doctors operating out of US are Indians. As per government reports, about over 6 lakhs Indians have surrendered their passports in the last 5 years, and around 1.1 lakh surrendered it into 2021 itself. There is a physical deficit that is generated, and many researchers such as Jagdish Bhagwati gave the idea of brain drain tax, wherein home countries should be allowed to tax such individuals. Developed countries seek to welcome high-skilled migrants, leaving behind a pool of unskilled or semi-skilled workers. Most of them seek tertiary education in the country before moving abroad. Such practices can lead to loss of investment, research enthusiasm, and this declines the overall socio-economic status of our country and widens the knowledge gap in the country. Looking at the above arguments, we would like to conclude that the problem of brain drain directly attacks the human capital of a country, which are the pillars of developing nation. Therefore, even if a single individual who moved abroad and becomes successful, it is beneficial for the individual, but a lost opportunity for India to soothe growth and development. Thank you.
Now we would request the judges to ask their questions.
No, thanks, Team Chronicles, for your views on the topic. I have two questions, but both are kind of interlinked in the sense that one, you were talking about the economic disparity in India. Do you think the brain drain is the cause for that? I'm not sure, but yeah, if you have any statistics or data where you can substantiate your point. Second one, again on the doctors. You talked about brain drain and so many kind of in terms of statistics of number of doctors per patients. Again, for what I see or what I've read, it is more an issue of number of doctors being produced in India and not number of doctors who are moving out. So what are your views on these two questions?
Thank you, sir, for your questions. I would like to answer those questions. Firstly, about the socio-economic parity. So if we take the example of United States, specifically the Silicon Valley, the top 10 firms have a market capitalization of over $2.71 trillion. And if we look at the statistics of Indians working there, they amount to staggering 1/3 of the total employees working in the Silicon Valley. So we certainly do believe if even the half of this talent was based out of India, operating in India for an Indian company, it would certainly have helped the economic growth and the development to follow. Secondly, for the question about doctors, so the migration of doctors is a major problem for almost every country. As we know, the medical education in our country is highly subsidized, and in cases these doctors seek their education and move abroad, this is a high loss to the country. And our very recent example is COVID-19 waves, wherein a lot of our doctors were infected with COVID-19, and we had to rely on either junior doctor or experienced paramedical staff for continuance of the operations.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the judges? Now we would like the participating teams to pose their questions by raising their hands. Please do not do so until the floor is open. You have 30 seconds to ask your questions, and we request you to keep the question crisp and precise. Counter questions are not allowed. And please mention your name and your team name while asking your rebuttals. The floor is now open.
Okay, so Vishwanath, you may go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is Vishwanath from Team XL. The central premise of your argument is that 35% of the people at NASA are all Indians. And you feel that if these people stayed back, then we'd be much better technologically. But according to the Financial Express, we emerged as the second most promising source of global innovation in 2020, which tends to suggest there is just a lack of time before we become a technological superpower, which is counterindicative to what you said that we are not where we could be.
Thank you, Team Excel, for your question. I would like to answer this. When we talk about technological innovations and any other innovation so far, we can see that there are too many Indians who are highly skilled and have left the country. If those Indians who have left the country, if they were to work in India and they were to train the juniors in India or those who are not equally skilled, then that would have been beneficial for the country as opposed to them just leaving the country and not giving anything back to the country. It's not just about NASA that we are talking about. Let's take another example. We have so many leaders who have left the country and are not yet coming back. Abhijit Banerjee, he left, but he did not come back. Raghuram Rajan was there, but he was served only for a limited tenure. So if their expertise is brought into the country and they stay over here, it is going to benefit the country as a whole. I hope my answer satisfies you. Thank you.
Next, we have Nitiksha. But Nitiksha, you have already exhausted the limit of asking the questions. That is the 2 questions you can ask at max. So next we have Dibanshu. Dibanshu, you may go ahead with your question.
Hi, this is Dibanshu from Team PGDA. Great point, Steve. Just one point that I wanted to understand further, especially about the doctors, is that we often read news reports of how doctors have been assaulted or abused by patients' families because they didn't agree with the treatment. And I feel like, especially in a high-impact job like medicine, there's a dignity of labor is very important, and a person wants to feel respected, which is the reason that a lot of people move abroad. So, what are your comments on that?
Thank you, Dipanshu, for your question. I certainly agree with your points that in some parts of the country, the doctors are not treated to the extent they should be. But things have certainly changed up in the post-COVID era, where the doctors are recognized to be the saviors and they have contributed a lot. And that is the point that you mentioned. The argument that you brought up is primarily of law and order and not the brain drain. Even if these doctors stayed and they contributed towards the country, the law and order situations in the country are continuously improving, and it won't be long until we see that these things don't happen again.
Next we have Raghav. Raghav, please go ahead with your question.
Hello, I am Raghav from Team Budding Debaters. So my question is that when you mentioned that about the Jagdish Bhagwati and his proposing of the taxing of the foreign earned income, is it not a impingement on the opportunity given to the people to move out of the country, and a restriction to their rights of exercising their duties in the exercising their choices? In the form that they creating a trouble and a hindrance in their way of living. Should not this be against the principles of the moral principles of the what a country or a country can or cannot do?
Thank you, Raghav, for your question. I would like to answer this. When we talk about countries impinging the rights of individuals in terms of traveling abroad, the main focus of this is usually certain articles which are given under Universal Declaration of Human Rights and ICCPR in terms of human rights. That is Article 1 and Article 3. I would like to mention that even when we talk about their free movement, we must remember that there are certain clauses in such agreements and treaties which specifically state that if a country has limited resources and if it wants its resources to be utilized to the best of their capabilities for the development of the country as a whole and for the benefit of greater good, then it can do so. So restrictions in such terms are feasible and they are allowed by other countries as well. I hope I satisfy your question. Thank you so much.
Next we have Yashvi. Yashvi, please.
Okay, so you mentioned a point about subsidized education and how people are getting subsidized education from India and moving abroad. I would like to give you the example of Nordic countries like Norway and Sweden who have 100% subsidy on education, and yet they are able to retain their talent to a great extent. So do you think that this should even be a point of discussion? Subsidized education, should this even be a point of consideration?
Thank you, Yashashvi, for your question. To counter your argument, we do have countries like Germany, many European countries that have free tertiary education, and they don't charge anything for the tuition fees, as far as you pointed out correctly. Now, a major problem we have to consider is India. When we compare India to these countries, a major stark difference is the population that we have. Now the population that India has and the population that these European countries individually have are there's a stark difference in these in the numbers. Now, if these countries are still facing this, these countries don't feel. Sorry, please excuse me. These countries don't face this kind of difficulties primarily because of the law and order situation that they have inside the countries, as well as the research capabilities they have developed over time. In case of India, the large population needs to be subsidized, and the upbringing of the BPL people, the people below poverty line, needs to be brought up, and for that reason, subsidized education is a must in the society like India's. Secondly, the research. Secondly, the research pointers, research development should be
Sorry to
more
interrupt.
enhanced.
Your time is up.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you, Team Chronicles. Now we can go ahead with our last team.
Moving ahead, I may now invite Team Pegasus from Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai, represented by Nancy Balecha and Anshara Siddiqui, who will be speaking for the motion.
May I start?
Yes, you may start.
Okay. So country's reputation, beauty, and future are owed to us, the citizens of India. Then how can it consider its progress if all its skills lead to developed countries? How can Indians even progress if India still remains just a back office of the major superpowers of the world? Very good afternoon to all present here. Here we are, Team Pegasus, fighting for the motion that brain drain phenomena is just a short-term gain for Indians, but a massive loss for developing countries like India. Walk into any campuses of premier institutes, and you would see as many students with their GRE and GMAT books as any other teachers. It is no longer a secret that large majority of the graduating classes in India will eventually leave and settle in those countries. Some of them are working towards higher education in US, or the masters at the research level students are looking for job opportunities in Japan, Germany, and the United States. To give a clear picture, let me inform you. The number of Indian students opting for higher education abroad would be roughly 1.8 million by 2024, a whooping 133% increase from 2019. Also, as per UNESCO, despite a major pandemic and restricted travel across the world, 91% of the Indian students showed interest in pursuing studies abroad. As terrifying as these numbers can be, these are the numbers we are living with and are forecasted to ever increase. The main causes of this brain drain are unemployment, political instability, unavailability of non-conventional courses in India, absence of research facilities, poor working conditions, and dreadful medical facilities in India. In fact, 71% of students opting for higher education abroad have mentioned better healthcare facilities as one of the major reasons to study and look for opportunities abroad. And this also highlights the terrifying nature of healthcare in India. Due to this brain drain, India loses access to quality skill sets and qualifications, besides losing on taxes and the money spent by the government on the citizens. This in turn restricts the overall growth and GDP of India.
Let me try explaining our view in a better way. Nobel laureate Dr. Hargobind Khurana, who worked on human genome, failed to secure a job in IISc Bangalore due to institutional politics, and at last, because of no alternative left, went to USA to pursue his career further. Similarly, in one more case, due to the ignorance of government, one large article accelerated project similar to Large Hadron Collider or at CERN in partnership to some foreign institute could not be established in India. So today, a person studying particle physics will surely like to go abroad for his further studies. Indra Nui, the ex-CEO of PepsiCo, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and Sundar Pichai is the CEO of Google. All these CEOs are Indian-born but no longer Indians. If they can become the CEOs in the USA, why can't they become CEOs in India? The main reason behind this is because in India there is limited resource, poor governance, lack of good opportunities, and it's very true. Let me ask you a question. What would have happened had these personalities stayed back in India? What would have happened had they been given ample opportunities in India? Well, they would have contributed immensely to our GDP and estimated to be around 1.5% of the total GDP, which is humongous. Not to mention the growth through the sharing of their knowledge and skills by becoming the founders of homegrown companies, by being advisors to the government, or by offering the services to established Indian companies. Imagine the size of the contribution we have missed because of our short sightedness. To halt the brain drain, the Indian government must recognize these reasons and strive to improve the country's work culture, infrastructure, resources, healthcare, policies, and law and order in collaboration with private sector to ensure that our country becomes a developed country rather than just a back office for major developed countries. Thank you, and we rest our case.
Now we would request the judges to ask their questions.
Hi, so nice presentation, Team Pegasus. My question to you is that you have correctly highlighted a list of Indians that have gone abroad and become the top honchos, the top CXOs of the global giants. But my question to you is that there are a lot of Indians who have stayed back in India and have still risen to the topmost position in the Indian MNCs also. TCS, Infosys are no less Indian companies, are as much MNCs now, and they're headed by Indians only who stayed back in India and were a product of some of the best educational institution products in the country. So had these top people not also moved out, they would have been in India, they would have risen to the topmost positions in Indian MNCs companies also. What is your opinion on that?
Sir, thank you for the question. I'd like to answer that up. It is very true that many of the Indians have stayed back, but some of the Indians have also left. So if they would have not left our country, that would have added on to the GDP contribution that have already been coming from the CEOs, which are already the CEOs of well-known companies set up in India. So not to negate that we are losing on it, but also thanks to the some of the Indian CEOs which are already present, we do have our back and we do have our share on the talent that they have.
Also, to add to Nancy, sir, I think the problem is that 4 or maybe 10 years from now ago, people were willing to stay in India and invest in India. But these trends are highlighting, as you mentioned, that in today's scenario, 91% of students are willing to go abroad. So currently, we have Indian citizens who have actually worked in India, studied in India, and contributing to India. But the percentage of people who are actually studying in India for tertiary education and then going outside India and settling over there is alarming. So a brainstorm Indian might not be a problem lot back, but does still become a major problem.
Sorry to interrupt, but your time is up.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the judges?
No, none for me. Thank you.
Now we would like the participating teams to pose their questions by raising their hand. Please do not do so until the floor is open. You have 30 seconds to ask your question, and we request you to keep the questions crisp and precise. Counter questions are not allowed. The floor is now open.
Okay, so Tushar, you may go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you. So this is Tushar from Team NPA. My question is that the flow of goods and labors go hand in hand, and India has been constantly pushing for Mode 4 of the General Agreement on Trade on Services at the WTO. So how is your stance consistent with this policy push by the successive Indian governments at almost all the global forums? Yeah, thank you.
So if I understand, thank you for the question. If I understand it correctly, you are saying that we are not okay by selling, giving away our skill force, but we are okay with selling our services to other major countries. So let me put it this way, that because we had a good skill set and because we have a good labor, that's the reason we are able to give good quality services to others. Selling our services is an entirely different thing, and that helps in contributing to our GDP in comparison to giving away our skilled labor force or skilled workforce to other countries, because it is definitely having a very detrimental effect on GDP going forward. I hope that answers your question.
Next, we have Priyanshi. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi all, I'm Priyanshi from Team PGDS. So you mentioned about people moving abroad for research. But as per a study, the academics in US have a purchasing power parity of 6 times as the academics in India. Do you really think that anybody would want to continue staying in India given those terms?
As we said that the major reason of brain drain is not only we are not focusing on Indians who are choosing themselves over India. We clearly mentioned during our debate as well that there are lacking opportunities in India, and that's why it is even becoming difficult for Indians to stay back in India. I agree that opportunities and the facilities available abroad are way better than in India, and that's the reason we need people who have studied in India to contribute again in India to ensure that we also come up to the level where our Western counterparts are in terms of whether it's in terms of research or healthcare. Have that up.
Next, we have Manogna.
Hi, Team Pegasus. Good evening. My name is Manogna. I'm from Team Excel. My question is kind of two-faceted. Firstly, when we talked about Microsoft and Google, we agree that they are well-established companies, and what Sundar and Satya have done is definitely great. But isn't it true that these companies have had a head start, and the growth of tech companies, both service and product-based like Swiggy, Zomato, or tens of other unicorns, are going to be there soon? So this is the first part. The last part is when we talked about the IITs and IIM people, the students. The thing is, being a country of 1 billion odd, we have 10,000 graduates graduating from IITs every year. Despite those who have left, aren't we taking into consideration how much talent we already have left here to fill all of this void?
Sure. Thanks for the question. Very interesting indeed. Let me take the first one up. So exactly, Zomato or Swiggy will also reach a stance where Microsoft and Google we are pushing that way. But as I said, that we don't have educate labor or educate workforce because they are all leaving for foreign. Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai are CEOs of Google and Microsoft. Whether they could have stayed back and to maybe Zomato or Zerodha. So even if they grow to that level, do we have workforce or do we have actually skilled labor that we able to help them going at that pace? I guess, and that's the reason which is a problem. Second, coming to your second question, can you please repeat the second question?
Ansha, I can take up the second question, I think.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So your second question was about the present skills that we already have, the talent. It's true that we have tens of thousands of talent available in our home country as well, but we cannot negate the fact that due to the lack of facilities over here and the major reservation systems which are followed over here, many of the candidates which are deserving enough are not getting enough chances. For example, if I take up a example of Snap, for example, okay, so a 65 percentile candidate, if he's in some SC or ST category, can very well enter into the interview of the round, but same thing for a general category student, he cannot enter. So that shows the discrimination which is being followed over here. With that being said, we could have had more talent coming up, but we are not seeing that, because of which people are tending to move abroad and brain drain is happening. I hope that answers.
Thank you, team. While the results are being calculated, we would like to thank our esteemed judges for sharing their valuable time and gracing this event. Before announcing the results, we would like to take this opportunity to invite Mr. Manu Kohli to share his thoughts on today's experience.
No, thanks for the opportunity given to me to proceed over the debate. It was really a very interesting topic. Oh, sorry. I hope you were able to hear me at least, if not see me. Okay. Thanks LSPM for giving me this opportunity to hear a very diverse set of views and a lot of interesting thoughts on what young people think today about this kind of very relevant and current topic. Personally, I feel brain drain per se in today's globalization word somehow doesn't kind of sit very well with me. It's once at one level we talk about globalization, the world becoming a global village, and at the other level we're talking about brain drain or restricting ourselves in terms of limiting either career choices or movement choices for people to migrate to different countries, whether for work, for living, for quality of education, quality of standard of living. Personally, I don't kind of does not sit very well with me. But rest be assured, that was not my criteria to judge any of the people who are against it. But really very interesting points made by people. I personally feel I think there are 2 points which some of you may have missed out, or at least I didn't remember hearing it from you. One was the autonomy versus control in our centers of excellence. So whether it is IITs or IIMs or other whether IICs or other kind of good institutes. I think we've over the years, because of where we started as a central model of kind of social development, we've controlled everything by the government, and it's coming to a place that we are liberalizing everything. But I think still, education is one thing which is still, at least the secondary and the tertiary education is still very, very tightly controlled by the government, influenced by the government because of the funding that the government is providing. Unlike a lot of other countries, whether it is US or UK, but I think US is probably the best example, where the institutions have a lot of autonomy. If you look at institutes like Harvard or Stanford, the kind of endowment funds that they have is mind-boggling. I think of the top 20 institutes in the world, none of them would have less than $20 billion of endowment funds. So I think it's part autonomy, part independence of hiring the right talent in India. I think that's where India lacks a lot when it comes to teaching as a profession. So we've not made teaching as a profession very attractive either economically or also as a career choice for people who kind of demand or should get that kind of respect. At the end of the day, teacher builds the next generation. So I think somehow over the last few centuries we have lost our respect for the teachers. I think that's where probably one thing that none of you were able to point it out. The other thing, at least I feel, and talking to a lot of my peers and juniors or seniors, and I'm talking about more of affluent families. There are a lot of people, my generation, people who have done very well, feel that it's too much competition. Some of you may have pointed out. So they don't want their kids to suffer that competition. So if they have money, they'll send their kids abroad and let them study because it's much more easier to get into IB schools than IITs or IIMs. So I think that's one point some of you, I don't know, directly or indirectly, I don't think I have any witness pointed out. It's my kind of two pennies on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we invite Dr. Mohit Lohani to share his thoughts on today's experience.
Thank you, Team Plethys, and thank you all the participants and also the entire management committee and everybody who's involved in this whole event that took place. It's a memorable experience for me, and I'm sure it would have been the same for most of you. Regarding the topic of brain drain, so again, my views are on both sides of the equation, but there is a certain fact that I would like to bring to the fore here, that essentially India has been the fountainhead of a lot of scientific, spiritual, and cultural knowledge for last many millennia. That is why India is considered the exporter of such concepts like yoga, of Buddhism, of Zen philosophy, as well as of in scientific fields of the Ayurveda, of the Indian numerals, as well as in the other fields of astrology and astronomy. India is one of the founding doyens in the field of civilization. So India's brain intellect has already been harnessed by a lot of other civilizations over time. Doesn't mean that somebody has to physically go out and do work in the other country for them to use it. They have been anyways been able to benefit from our talent pool and intellectual pool for last many millennia. So that is one aspect. Secondly is that there is one thing to acquire knowledge. Sometimes, especially not nowadays, now that knowledge is available across online, but earlier, yes, there was knowledge deficit gap between India and abroad. So people used to go out. A lot of people who were the doyens of India's freedom struggle, whether it be Dada Sahab, Ambedkar ji, whether it Mahatma Gandhi ji, Nehru ji, everybody, a lot of people back then had gone abroad, and they, after having acquired knowledge, they came back to India and they contributed back to India. Point I think none of the team members mentioned here. We even in the industry we have many such examples of people going outside, like Tatas went outside initially to acquire knowledge. We have the founding father of India's cinema, Dasa Falkar, who went to UK to get education about how to start Indian cinema in India, and they all came back to India and contributed. So I believe that it is quite possible for our youth, because I'm representing and I'm talking to the youth here, that you can go outside, you can acquire knowledge, you can have some experience. You know the example of the Flipkart Bansals. So I mean, you can get an example of learning how to acquire knowledge outside and come back and make an impact in India. Your life will ultimately be remembered for the kind of impact you will be able to make. So as Mr. Manu also said, that you can look at the glass in India as half empty or half full. So if you can bring out a very novel concept back, coming back to India, and really making a good success out of it, you will be remembered more here in this country. If Mr. Ambedkar would have been in abroad, he would still have been an astonishing authority in constitution and a lot of subjects. But the kind of impact he made while coming back to India, that was staggering. Remember, as people who were like Mr. Marshalkar or people who started Indian cinema, they were given a lot of offers to stay back in Europe and UK and contribute to their industries there itself. But they realized that the kind of impact they will be able to make here back in India will be far, far more. And so ultimately you will be remembered not by how much money you earned or how much assets you could have gained, but you will be remembered for the kind of impact you made for the entire industry or the economy or the nation wherever you lived. So the impact that you will be able to make in a country, as you said, India, the developing country, will remain so for some decades. The impact you will be able to make here in India will be far greater if you can just acquire the knowledge. And now you can acquire the knowledge online also. You don't have to actually be physically be in a foreign country to acquire that knowledge. And the impact that you will be able to make here in India and the speed with which you will be able to rise in that particular sector in India will always be far, far greater than perhaps you will be able to get outside, where you will be competing against a lot of similar candidates from outside and inside of that country. So I believe that option should also be explored. Already we have seen a lot of Indian venture capitalists and a lot of individuals, whether be it Shark Tank, whether be it VCs, who have exposure, who have worked outside, understood concepts, and now they are replicating back here in country and making a far greater impact in this country. And also because of the population, the demographic dividend that India has, India will continue to rise to be in the top 3, top 2 positions of the world very soon in the next few decades. So if you start up some evolution here in India after learning the facts, whether be it in any field, art or science or business or entrepreneurship, even in the field of medicines, also you know the saying by Mr. Prahlad, one of the biggest gurus in management, that there is fortune at the bottom of pyramid, and the bottom of the pyramid here lies in India. And the solutions that we are able to bring out here in India has a lot of relevance for other, because the next continent that will rise after, let's say, Europe or America, and now Asia is rising. After 3 or 4 decades, the next continent that has to rise because of the demographic dividend and the kind of potential it has in terms of minerals and human capital is Africa. Most of the management gurus outside of India, unfortunately not so in India, but outside of India, are saying that the solutions to those kind of problems will be found in a country like India, because it is here that we are finding out very cheap and very practically relevant solutions, and these solutions will be making a lot of impact in Latin America and Africa also. So if you see yourself 30-40 years from now, the kind of impact you can get, the kind of pool you can attract will be far greater if you apply your minds out here in India. That is my personal belief. But best of luck to people who believe on both sides of the equation. See your life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we share the results, we would like all the participants to volunteer about what their viewpoint is about this topic, irrespective of the stance they spoke for. I request the participants who wish to speak to kindly raise their hands. Yes, Nitiksha.
Hi, thank you for the recognition again. I think I just wanted to opinionate here particularly because I'm just exploring this particular circuit of debating. I'm like primarily from DU debating circuit, where debates are very different from where they operate, from how they operate here. because here the motions are more nuanced, they're more management related, etc. There we talk more social justice and on those lines. So I think on the idea of like brain drain also, I took a similar perspective in terms of how, see, they're publicly funded companies, right? Like Google and JP Morgan and whatnot. What essentially happens is that these companies don't have an impact only in the countries they're operating within or where they were pioneered, but across the globe. Which means when you're outsourcing manufacturing to China or even India, you are going ahead and giving your carbon emission to the countries that are developing in order to keep yourself out of the way of like any kind of ecological disasters. So what can essentially happen with people participating even from afar in the worst case scenario, even if they want to go join these big companies because they have heft and have more income, I think that change can still be perpetuated and it can trickle down to India. Because like I talked about Geeta Gopinath as well, if she's able to have a say in IMF, she'd be able to make it like down in terms of India having more bargaining chip in IMF, which eventually looks like India getting to have more say, like funding, etc., or just having better equation on the global forum gives you a lot of heft, which in turn reflects in how your people are faring because you have better funds, you have better relations, but you also have a more nuanced standing on the global forum. So I think that was my like primary perspective from where I came.
Thank you, Nitiksha. Now we have Viswanathan who would like to share his views with us.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the recognition again. Vishwanath here from Team Excel. The thing is, I think there are merits to both sides, right? Like India is a massive country. It's a simple fact that not everybody can clear like a 99 percentile, whether it be IIT, CAT, whatever it is. They do need opportunities abroad. But the fact that we have so many people is indicative of the fact that we can do things here, and they are being done. There are lots of startups, lots of opportunities being taken, lots of opportunities being hunted even, and a lot of these are also entrepreneurial in nature, and they're also, how do you say, social impactful in nature. If you look at the last 5 unicorns we've had, they're either in education or they're in the service sector, which is indicative of the fact that, okay, the people who are actually educated here know the problems that are happening here, and whether or not the politicians are doing anything about it, we are ready to. So while people like Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, they are doing immensely well. If they've gone to a country which is and joining Google, which has existed for like since '97, and they can be CEOs there, talent is there. But whether or not they're going abroad, we still have the talent here. So from both sides of the coin, you are still impacting the country in a positive manner. The larger problem is that our country is so big. So impacting that change takes time, and it is more incremental in nature, and it's not going to happen overnight. And right now we will think that, okay, there's no change that's happening substantially, but for a country this size, it cannot be substantial change in one shot. It has to be incremental, and that's where the innovation truly lies.
Sure. Thank you, Vishwanath. Now we have Manogna who would like to share her views.
Good evening again, everyone. Firstly, thank you, LVSIM. Thank you for the opportunity. And we got to meet Mr. Lalita Shastri's descendant himself. And firstly, to talk about the topic, we are not blushing over something that's very mainstream or very diplomatic to answer to. You forced us to pick a side, and fortunately or unfortunately for us, this is the kind of questions we'll be thinking about right now, right? Given that we are in our early 20s, this is the kind of questions we'll be asking ourselves. Do we stay back in India or do we move abroad? So thanks again for the opportunity to dive deep into the topic and then think for ourselves and make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Manogna. Now we have Ashish who would like to share his views.
Thank you, Soumya. First of all, the topic was a very broad topic, and if we look at it, we had ample amounts of for and against stands for this topic. A special gratitude to Plithos for conducting this. It was a really amazing session, and we thoroughly enjoyed the session. About my personal stance on this topic, I certainly do believe brain drain is really a problem. But along with problem, it also represents a unique challenge that we can take on and develop our country. Let's take an example of Taiwan or even South Korea, which faced similar issues in the 20th century, the second half of 20th century. But now, as we see, they had reforms, major stark reforms on the political level, and now we see that Taiwan is a global leader in semiconductor manufacturing. And if Taiwan can do it, I don't see any reason why can't we as well. We have excelled in the IT region, and we are like we need to do a lot more in the secondary industries as well. And these things will definitely be improved over the long term as our governance, as our education system improves over time. So yeah, that was a great session, and thank you for to all the participating teams and judges. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. Now, Chitra, you may share your views.
First of all, I would like to thank all the judges and all the participating members. It was a really fun event for me. I got to learn a lot many things while doing research for this topic. This research entailed not only just reading newspaper articles but also going across various United Nations reports and other things. Also, a few things which I came across when I was reading all the articles. Again, I believe that brain drain is a problem, just like my partner had just said right now. But on the flip side, we do see that it is required to some extent. Now that we have so much of population in our country, we see that underemployment and unemployment again is a major cause of worry. So people who are leaving the country because of unemployment or underemployment, at the end of the day, when we are not able to find out right opportunities for them, I think they are forced to do so. And finding opportunities does take a lot of time. Even when we look at all the reports of CIME and others, we see that the percentage of unemployed in the country is increasing. Also, when we talk about other countries and when we talk about globalization, I think it is a fact that people will travel abroad and there are chances that they will settle over there. So there is no point in trying to bring them back. But what I feel certainly that what we can do at this point in time is to improve what we have in hand. So we can look for the fact that yes, we need to develop our educational institutions. We need to retain good faculties. We need to retain good minds and brains in the country so that they can work towards the development of the nation. When it comes to doctors, we know that COVID was a time when we did not have enough doctors. We need to produce more doctors. There's no doubt about that. But is it only the production of more doctors in the country which will suffice? No, we need highly skilled doctors. For that, we need better technology. And how does that technology come into picture? Because of better engineers. Now, skilling those engineers again is a question. Why India is not able to produce the best engineers in the world despite the fact that we are producing the highest number of engineers in the country? So all these things, they work in tandem, and we need to look at all the things taken together. So brain drain is just one single aspect of the problem. There are so many things that the country needs to do right now. I think government policies are the first things that we can take into account. So if the government is coming up with better policies in place, if we are able to improve our economy by bringing in better economic reforms, by bringing in better monetary policies, I think that will take us way ahead of many of the countries with whom we are competing these days. Overall, I would also like to thank Team Plethos for organizing this debate. It was a wonderful opportunity. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chitra. Thank you to all the participants who shared their views on the topic. Now, I'd request all the participants to share their experience of Lalita Shastri Debate Competition 2022. You may please raise your hands and we shall call out your names. Yes, Vishwanath.
I think it was a great platform to get together diverse opinions, and it was so nice to see multiple points of view being explored regardless of a common topic. And having been a teacher myself, like it's very exciting to see ideas that were never even thought about before come to the fore. And I really thank LBSIM for making this opportunity a reality. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Vishwanath. Yes, Chitra.
As far as my experience is concerned, I'm really glad that I was able to compete with so many great minds. It isn't something that we get regularly. You know, we do get to talk to all the students in the same college, but sometimes when we get to, hear people from outside and we get to connect with them, I think this is just a great platform, even when it comes to networking, which is something all MBA students are talking about these days. So I feel like this association can go ahead in the future also. So it was just an amazing experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chitra. Now we have Debansu.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, I think Chitra and Vishwanath have already mentioned everything, but it was a great opportunity to get to hear so many different points of view, especially on a topic like this, because there are two sides to it. And there are definitely going to be, and the thing is that people were pushed to pick a side. It wasn't what you actually believe in. So that was a great opportunity. One thing I really liked with the questions as well in the rebuttal, both the questions that were asked to us as well as that teams asked to each other, it was I felt like people were asking genuine questions and not just something they wanted to ask for the sake of it. So that was also a great learning opportunity for me. So thank you to the team for organizing this.
Thanks a lot. Now I request Dr. Sheila Bhargava, Faculty Advisor, Plithos, to announce all the winners. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your patience. I think it took some time to calculate the results. First of all, I would like to, congratulate all the participating team. It was, indeed an intellectual debate where we got so much diverse perspective on the given topic, that is brain drain, a gain for Indians and a loss for India. You people have actually come up with so many different perspectives, or I would say the reflections were so tantalizing that we can have a lot of, debate on this topic. I also like what was said by both the judges, that our education system is actually slightly controlled, especially at the higher education level. And there are other, you can say, lacunas also, as mentioned by both of the judges. So this is something which can we manage to a large extent. This is what you can say, drawn out from the reflections by all the team today. Now coming on with the results. First of all, in any event, we have to, when it's a competition, we have to declare some winners. But this does not, I would say, decrease the efforts, and it should not decrease the effort and motivation of all the other participants. For me, participation is just like winning. So I would like to congratulate all the teams for actively participating and coming out with their viewpoints. And I think we can give them a round of applause to all the participants on teams. But since we have to announce some teams as the three winners, so moving ahead, I would like to announce the second runner-up who came up with the third position in this event. And this second runner-up is Team Chronicles. The team members are Chitra Agarwal and Ashish Kashyap. Both are from Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Delhi. So congratulations to both the team members. Further, I would like to come up with the second runner-up, and this position was bagged by the team Accelerate Delhi. And the team members of Accelerate Delhi are Manogna and Vishwanath. So congratulations to both of you. Then we will come for the most awaited awaited moment of the event, and that is the first prize and the winners of this inter-college debate competition. And there was, it was a tough fight for this position. When I see the scores of the judges, it was quite, a neck-to-neck fight. But the team that made it to the top was NPA. So the team from Narsi Monji Institute of Management, Mumbai, they are the first position holders. So heartiest congratulations to all the winning teams. Now, before taking my leave, I would like to thank both the judges for their time and I would say the reflections that they have given after the event. We are really thankful to both of them for coming up with so much of time for this event. And I would also like to thank the student team of Plethos who have been coming up with such innovative events. If you look at their list of events, every time they come up with so much of innovative events. And LSDC is our flagship annual event, which was again, I would say, organized in a very successful manner for the team. So thank you all my team members. Now, the last, I would say, part of the result declaration is best debater and best rebuttal. So the prize for the best debater goes to Debanshu Mukhopadhyay from IIM Kozhikode. So congratulations, Debanshu. Debanshu, are you there? Can we have you on screen if you're there? Congratulations,
Yes,
Debanshu.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. And the best rebuttal, this prize goes to Khyati Parikh. And Khyati Parikh is from the team Manik Debaters, and they are from Daulat Ram College, Delhi. So Khyati, are you there? Can you come on screen if you're still there? I'm not sure whether Khyati is there. I think she has logged off. So my heartiest congratulations can be forwarded to her. So I once again thank all the team members, all the participants, both the judges and the student team of Plethos. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and a very big congratulations to all the winners. Before moving forward, I request all the winners to please be on the camera so that we can take a picture.
All the
Thank
participating team members can switch on their cameras. It would be wonderful to have a big all of you.
Thank you. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Arshveer Kaur, Coordinator, Pithos, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Nanya. So, good evening, everyone. I am honored to have this opportunity to present the vote of thanks to all those who have made today's event a success. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our chief guest, Mr. Lalita Shastri ji, for giving us his valuable time and honoring today's events with his words and esteemed presence. You and your thoughts have always been a joy to have here, sir. I'd like to thank our director, Dr. Praveen Gupta, who has constantly given us his guidance throughout our planning and execution, and his constructive criticism and ideas which have helped us build this event. So I'd like to thank our judges for the day, Mr. Manu Kohli and Dr. Mohit Lohani. They have added immense value to today's event by giving their feedback and posing thought-provoking questions, which I'm sure have given the participants some food for thought. You have our immense gratitude, sirs. I'd like to thank our respected faculty mentor, Dr. Sheila Bhargava. She's been a pillar of strength and wisdom behind the success of today's event. We actually fall short of words about how ma'am has helped us in the weeks leading up to this competition. And finally, we are breathing a sigh of elation and relief, I must say, because ma'am was by our side. I'd like to thank the management grid for being a supportive force of LBSIM and being there for Plethos during all of our events with all their enthusiasm. I'd also like to thank Rajesh Thakur sir for helping us out with all our requirements in the institute as always. And now it's time to thank the most important people who have made the event an actual debate. We all have had our roles to play, but it was the participants who have done a tremendous job with theirs. Plethos is honored to have hosted you, and you have our gratitude. And saving the best for the last, I would like to take this opportunity
to thank with all my heart my wonderful team here at Plethos. My juniors have been a massive support and the ones without whom this event wouldn't have been possible. Divya, my fellow coordinator, has been a rock and a true partner. Kriti, Mehek, Shubham, Charu and Rupal, who have been wonderful leaders to the team today and before. And I must not forget our seniors Siddharth Prasad and Tanmay Bhateja, who are our former coordinators and have always been there to advise us. But I can say that we didn't fully rely on them, so they taught us well. I am a true believer of one for all and all for one. And as a proud member of Team Plethos, we are completing this event successfully because TWSS. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashpi, for those wonderful words. It was indeed an extremely enriching experience, witnessing the fierce battle of not just words, but also the knowledge, the confidence, and the astuteness displayed by all the participants. You all have been a great audience, and we really thank you all. So, thank you all for your presence.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
You may
Thank
all
you, guys.
leave the meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Good evening.